Chapter 1880. Wait a minute. Luli thought of something. He asked with a frown, Patriarch Chin, aren't the beasts of void intangible? How can my worms of the void eat them? I don't think they can eat intangible bodies, can they? They are not intangible bodies. Patriarch Chin said with a smile. Actually, the beasts of dream you saw just now are fake. As soon as they appear, they can create illusions. You didn't even see their real bodies. Wait here. I will lure out a group of beasts of dream. Patriarch Chin rushed over. In an instant, he was more than 300 feet away from Luli. The forest on both sides began to tremble. Luli used psychic power to check. He saw many balls coming out from the woods. Yes, they were balls. They had 4 limbs, but they were too short to be seen. They had ears like rabbits, but they had fangs in their mouth. When they walked, they were rolling. Their limbs were tucked into their bodies. They were rolling toward Patriarch Chin quickly. Patriarch Chin's eyes were closed. He didn't seem to know that the beasts of dream were approaching him. There were hundreds of beasts of dream on both sides. They were not moving fast. After the time for half an incense stick to burn, the hundreds of beasts of dream were close to Patriarch Chin. What surprised Luli was that the beasts of dream were thinner. Their bodies were like deflated balloons. Their limbs were longer and their claws were sharper. The beasts of dream were not large, about the size of tigers. Dozens of beasts of dream swarmed toward Patriarch Chin. Their eyes glowed red. They looked like dozens of hungry wolves. When Luli was about to warn Patriarch Chin opened his eyes. He moved his feet and kicked the beasts of dream to Luli. Patriarch Chin shouted, Luli, you can let your insects have a try. Okay. Luli nodded. He let out many worms of the void at once. Those were average worms of the void. Luli wanted them to evolve. He sent out hundreds of millions of worms of the void, and they flew toward the beasts of dream. The worms of the void entered the beasts of dream. Soon, Luli was speechless. The worms of the void could not even bite through the most vulnerable organs of the beasts of dream. The worms of void could not even bite through them. The beasts of dream were strong. Luli had to send out the golden worms of the void. This time, the worms of the void were able to chew. In the time for 1 incense stick to burn, the dream warlock was finished. Not even the bones were left. Moreover, after tens of thousands of void worms ate a dream demon beast, they would immediately split apart. The dream demon beast's body contained a lot of energy, and a single dream demon beast could support tens of thousands of void worms splitting apart. All right. Elder Churn floated over and said, leave these hundreds of thousands of bugs here, and let them eat freely. After some time, they will probably split into many more bugs. I don't think that's a good idea. Luli touched his nose embarrassedly and said, if we leave the worms here, I am afraid that all the dream demon beasts will be eaten up. Also, warriors that enter the 2nd floor of the Tower of Demon Imprisonment will be attacked as well. Once my insect gives the order, it will attack indiscriminately. As long as it's a living being, it will attack. It's all right. Elder Churn waved his hand and said, there are many dream devil beasts here, at least tens of millions. Even if the bugs eat them all, it doesn't matter. You can enter a small world at the Cloudy Mountain, and that small world is filled with dream devil beasts. As for warriors that can explore the 2nd floor of the Tower of Demon Imprisonment, we can make some other arrangements. Anyway, we just need to mobilize a group of dream devil beasts. This is not a problem. Okay. Since Patriarch Chin had said so, Luli didn't waste any more time. He told the mother insect to order the hundreds of thousands of bugs outside to fly around and attack all living beings. Luli put away the regular void worms, leaving only the hundreds of thousands of golden ones. He believed that the next time he came here, the hundreds of thousands of void worms would split into tens of billions or even hundreds of billions. When Luli was done, Patriarch Chin crushed a jade talisman. The sky glowed and a portal appeared. Patriarch Chin brought Luli into the portal, and they appeared outside the Tower of Demon Imprisonment. The second floor is closed for now. I will talk to you when I come back. Patriarch Chin said something to the leader guarding the Tower of Demon Trapping, and then left with Luli. The warriors nearby were envious. The second floor of the Tower of Demon Imprisonment was closed for a while after Luli went in. If it were not for the fact that there were no scandals about Fairy Tianyun, people would think that Luli was her gigolo. Luli and Patriarch Chen left the Cloudy Mountain and went directly to the Jile Mountain. On their way, they ran into some warriors who saw Luli from afar and ran away in fear. Recently, this white-haired young man was synonymous with killing God. How many people around here had been killed by him? What if they were killed by Luli if they didn't run? After 3 days, Luli and Patriarch Chen arrived at the Jile Mountain. There was a new leader here and the number of warriors had increased to 300. At the foot of the Jile Mountain, there was a warrior every mile or two. Patriarch Chen, young Master Lu. The leader's eyelids twitched when he saw Luli and Patriarch Chen. But he greeted them with a big smile. Patriarch Chen greeted him politely. The leader's surname was Ma and he was very respectful to Luli and Patriarch Chen. He repeatedly said that Luli could cultivate at will and Ma promised to fulfill his duty. Not even a mosquito could sneak up to the Jile Mountain. Luli expressed his gratitude out of courtesy and went up with Patriarch Chen. Luli killed several warriors on the peak of the Jile Mountain and their bodies were taken away. Just like before, lightning flashed and thunder rumbled, and lightning struck down continuously. Luli. Patriarch Chen thought about it and said, "How about I stay here and guard for you for another year? I think you can consume all the primordial chaos chi in a year at most. By then, your defense will be stronger as well." Previously, Elder Chen had immediately left after guarding for a year, but this time, he had taken the initiative to stay. The difference in his attitude could not be said to be small. Luli smiled and said, "It's okay, Patriarch Chen. There are many things at the Cloudy Mountain that you need to deal with. What was more, Gong Zizai and the others were killed. The ones left are not strong. The Black Mountain has made an example out of them. Who would dare to mess around? Also, after I consume the primordial chaos chi, I may not go back to the Cloudy Mountain right away. I may need to refine my body for a while with the help of Thunderbolt. I don't want to bother you. More haste, less speed." Luli planned to cultivate here for a few years to build a solid foundation and make his mind more stable. Only in this way could he have a chance to go further. "Okay." Patriarch Chen handed over a jade talisman and said, "Crush the jade talisman and I will come over as soon as possible. You can't ask Fairy Maiden for help. It will be more convenient for you to ask me." Patriarch Chen left. Luli let Uncle Li out. Seeing that they were back at the Jile Mountain, Uncle Li asked in surprise, "Master, how come we are back at the Jile Mountain? I have killed all the ones that needed to be killed and everything is taken care of. Of course, I am back to cultivate." Chapter 1881. Boom, boom, boom. Lightning flashed and thunder rumbled in the sky. Streaks of black thunderbolts struck down at Luli. The thunderbolts did not hurt Luli, nor was he smashed away. Instead, they disappeared into his body. When the thunderbolts entered Luli's body, they were channeled into the primordial chaos and then absorbed by the lightning collection formation. The primordial chaos was transformed into a special kind of energy and sent to his 720 acupoints. As the primordial chaos was consumed bit by bit, the energy would be distributed to every part of Luli's body to strengthen his body. In addition, when the energy of thunderbolts spread to every part of his body would be strengthened as well. Luli's body was changing day by day. It was growing fast. Luli paid no more attention to his body. He continued to study the fundamental principle of sword intent of ice and frost. He had been studying it for over a year but he had yet to master it. While he was cultivating, he was also cultivating his mind. He was not in a hurry to improve his abilities. He tried to calm himself down, to calm himself down, to calm himself down, and not to be impatient for quick result. At the same time, he was releasing the memories in the depth of his soul bit by bit. Running away was not the solution. The more he tried to run, the more painful it would be when the scars were uncovered. He set a goal for himself. He wanted to improve his abilities to the level of a 3 trials heaven god in 20 years. He did not expect to destroy the Hall of Black Flame. He only hoped to survive the attacks from the powerful warriors of the Hall of Black Flame. If he could make the Hall of Black Flame afraid of him, he could go back to the divinity and reunite with his family and people. Since there was no danger, Lu Li's mind was calmer and more peaceful after 5 months of cultivation. The primordial chaos was being consumed constantly. Every now and then, Lu Li would think about how to use the energy in his acupoints to enhance his strength or his body. He recalled a divine art he had learned before, the soul-shattering secret technique. This skill could transmit strength through the body and attack the enemy's soul directly, causing both physical and spiritual shock. Since he came to the divinity, he had rarely used this skill because for the powerful warriors in the divinity, this skill was too low-level. He was not strong enough. Also, his strongest attack methods had always been the Slayer's move and the Slayer's ghost cut. His defense was too weak. To engage in close combat was suicide. Now that his defense was improved, he preferred to engage in close combat. Therefore, he was thinking about how to use soul-shattering. He could release his strength through soul-shattering, which would increase his lethality. Oh right. Lu Li remembered that Uncle Li seemed to know a move like this, which was to transmit power into the enemy's body and then explode. It was similar to his soul-shattering secret technique, so he could use it as a reference. Lu Li stopped cultivating and went to Uncle Li. Uncle Li took out a book and said, "This is an ancient skill called spiritual explosion. I spent a lot of divine origin gold and battle merits in Black Flame Hall to exchange for it. Its power is not bad. Master, take it and study it." "Alright, thanks." Lu Li took it over and sat down to study it. Recently, his comprehension speed of the Frost Sword intent had been a little slow. However, he was not in a hurry. He would first try to comprehend this spiritual explosion. He sat cross-legged for 2 days and returned the secret manual to Uncle Li. He had memorized the contents of the manual. He walked to the center of Jile Mountain and continued to refine the primordial chaos while comprehending the spirit explosion secret technique. This spiritual explosion is much more profound. Lu Li realized that it was much more powerful than his soul-shattering secret technique. It was hundreds of times more complicated and abstruse. He entered the dreamland and began to study it bit by bit. At the same time, he tried to integrate the soul-shattering secret technique to see if he could create a more powerful move. Wait. 10 days later, Lu Li opened his eyes, shook his head and said, "I cannot integrate the soul-shattering secret technique. My soul attack is too weak. It will be of no use to my current enemies. Instead, it will affect the time of release." Lu Li's soul-shattering secret technique would have to pause for a moment. Dozens of power and soul shockwaves would surge in. For powerful warriors, they might be able to find a way to solve the problem within this short period of time. But spiritual explosion's secret technique was different. The power would be transmitted in instantly, and then it would explode, injuring the enemy from the inside. Therefore, Lu Li felt that the soul-shattering secret technique was of a low level and would not be effective against powerful warriors. "I need to go on and figure out a way to integrate the shockwaves into spiritual explosion's secret technique." Lu Li thought about it for a while, and then went back to the dreamland. Recently, the Tianling Mountain and the Palace of Black Mountain had been quiet. Those that were expelled from the Tianling Mountain to join the Palace of Black Mountain were well behaved. Those that were expelled from the Black Mountain to hunt Luli last time had all left. The 2 warriors at the peak of the second tribulation that went after Luli with Gong Zi last time had left as well. Therefore, nobody dared to make trouble for Luli. At the foot of the mountain, Commander Ma was relieved to see that everything was so quiet. For him, Luli was like a little ancestor. He could not allow anything to happen to him. Otherwise, he would follow in the footsteps of Commander Yang and be torn apart by the Black Mountain. There were fewer warriors lurking around the Tianling Mountain and the Black Mountain as well. Last time when Luli went on a killing spree, he scared many away. Those warriors wouldn't be coming back for a while. But 10 days later, a team of warriors came to the Black Mountain. There were not many warriors in the team, only 6, and all of them were at the peak of the second tribulation. After the team arrived, they hid in a mountain hundreds of thousands of miles to the south of the Black Mountain. Then, 2 of them sneaked to the Jilei Mountain to investigate. The 2 of them were very good at hiding. Commander Ma and the others didn't even notice that they were there. After the 2 of them explored Jilei Mountain, they walked around and found people lurking in the vicinity. They caught them. It only took them 3 days to torture and search their souls. The situation around the Tianling Mountain, the Black Mountain, and the Jilei Mountain was almost figured out. The 2 scouts went back to the cave they were hiding in. There were 4 people sitting cross-legged in the cave. Among the 4 of them, a bald man was clearly the leader. This bald man had a bewitching red tattoo on his head. He was also wearing a bright red robe, which made him look particularly demonic. Many people could recognize him if they saw his bald appearance. This bald man was famous at the Omen Island. His nickname was Bald Beard. This man used to be a famous powerful warrior from a big island near the Omen Island. Because he had done too many evil deeds, he was hunted down by several big families and was forced to come to the Omen Island. After he came to the Omen Island, he didn't change his nature. He gathered several ruthless men to burn, kill, and loot everywhere. Over the years, many people had died in their hands. Most importantly, this Baldy had a perverted hobby, and that was to like men. If it was a handsome young man, falling into his hands would be a fate worse than death. Bald Beard had done too many evil deeds at the Omen Island over the years. Unfortunately, he was strong and he was at the peak of the second tribulation. Even average third tribulation heaven immortals might not be a match for him. What was more, his means were vicious, he was good at running away, and he was very vindictive. Therefore, the major forces of the Omen Island didn't dare to mess with him. Brother Hu! When the 2 scouts came back, they reported to Bald Beard at once. We have a basic understanding of the situation. Luli is at the Jilei Mountain, and there are hundreds of average warriors there. We are not afraid. What is troubling is, Fairy Tianyun seems to value Luli. Will she hold a grudge against us if we kill Luli? What are you afraid of? Bald Beard touched his bald head and said with a creepy smile, Fairy Tianyun is just taking advantage of the Asmodean King's favor. We didn't break the Asmodean King's rules. What are we afraid of? Yen Hong has offered a high price. Let's kill Luli first. Ha ha. Chapter 1882. As a matter of fact, Luli and Uncle Li had been worried that Yen Hong would not let it go so easily and that he would resort to other means, such as bribing powerful warriors to go to the Omen Island to kill them. Luli killed Yen Hong's son, which was a great humiliation. Later on, Luli managed to escape from Yen Hong and the others and sneak into the Omen Island. This was simply a slap to the Black Flame Hall's face. As one of the 36 major forces, how could the Black Flame Hall swallow this insult? Therefore, Luli and Uncle Li were worried that Yen Hong might have other tricks up his sleeve. Today, he finally used his means. He bribed the bearded bald man and the other 5, and spent a large amount of divine origin gold and treasures. He must kill Luli. According to the Great Demon King's rules, no one from the 36 great forces was allowed to enter the heavenly demon island. Unless the Black Flame Hall wanted to fall out with the great demon king, they wouldn't dare to act recklessly. The bearded bald man and the others were from the Omen Island. They wanted to kill Lu Li, and it was not against the rules of the Asmodean Lord. Even if Baldy, who told everyone that he had been bribed by Yen Hong, the great demon king would not cause trouble for the Black Flame Hall. However, Bald Bearded Man and the others didn't take action immediately after they had a clear understanding of the situation. Two of the scouts had already gathered some information about Lu Li's fight with Gong Zizai and the others. He was not afraid that he could not kill Lu Li, but he was afraid that if he dragged on for too long, the Black Mountain would be lured out. In the entire Black Mountain Palace, the Bald Bearded Man was not afraid of anyone but Black Mountain. The Black Mountain was one of the top 5 most powerful warriors of the Omen Island. They had gone to the Jile Mountain to attack Lu Li in public. As long as they could stall for the time it took for an incense stick to burn, He Shan would definitely chase after them. At that time, not only would the remaining 5 people die, even the Bald Bearded Man would die. "Brother Hu, what should we do?" Hearing the scout's words, the others frowned, feeling that this was a thorny problem. The bearded Baldy smiled and said, "What's the hurry?" It was impossible that Lu Li had been cultivating at the Jile Mountain all this time. He had to return to the Heavenly Cloud Mountain, right? We just need to stay here and keep an eye on Jile Mountain. We can't provoke Black Mountain. He's too terrifying. I saw him attack last time. If we get targeted by him, none of us will survive. All right. The others trusted the bald man the most. Not only were they awed by his methods, but they also admired his wisdom. They had done so many evil things over the years, but they were still able to live free and unfettered. Apart from the bald man's battle prowess, what was more important was his wisdom. For them, spending a few years or even a few decades was nothing. After all, the price that Yen Hong offered this time was too high. It didn't matter if they wasted some time. Didn't it matter where they cultivated? Xiaohu, you two go to the foot of Jile Mountain to keep watch. Report back immediately if anything happens. The bearded Baldy waved his hand, and 2 cultivators floated out. The bearded Baldy took out a pagoda and chuckled. "Brothers, I'm going in to have some fun. My slaves can't wait any longer." The bearded Baldy entered the pagoda, and the others curled their lips. They disapproved of the bearded Baldy's perverted hobby. However, the few handsome young men in his pagoda had been trained by him to be even more womanly than women. They were not bad. Lu Li had been cultivating on the Jile Mountain. He had no idea that 6 hungry wolves had their eyes on him. Thanks to what happened last time, Lu Li would have died if the 6 had attacked him first. He had been studying the spiritual explosion skill recently. He wanted to integrate the vibration waves from the soul-shattering skill into the spiritual explosion skill, which would be powerful. The 2 kinds of attacks had the same effect through different means. Theoretically speaking, they should be able to be combined. The theory was simple, but it was difficult to put into practice. Another 5 months passed by. Lu Li had almost consumed all the primordial chaos chi in his body, but he hadn't succeeded yet. Of course, he had learned the spiritual explosion skill, but he was not satisfied with its power. During the 5 months, he had consumed a pair of black gloves. This was the first primordial chaos treasure he had, which belonged to Gong Zizai. He had killed Gong Zizai, so naturally, he had taken the glove. With the gloves, Lu Li's abilities would be enhanced. Therefore, if he could integrate the spiritual explosion skill and the soul-shattering skill, he believed that his abilities would be enhanced by several times. He didn't even have time to study the sword intent of ice and frost. It was too complicated and it would take him another year or 2. Lu Li listened to Fairy Tianyun. He was not in a hurry. He wanted to take things slow and steady and improve his physical strength. During this time, he had been cultivating his divine energy and soul. That being said, the speed of cultivation was a bit slow. It would take time and he could not rush it. Luli had lost track of time. He had nothing else to do anyway. He would cultivate and cultivate. If something happened, Fairy Tian Yun would send someone to inform him. The most important thing for him now was to build a solid foundation, stabilize his realm, and improve his abilities. Fairy Tian Yun wouldn't ask Luli to go back if there was nothing important. As for Commander Ma, he didn't pay any attention to Luli. Therefore, Luli could cultivate here in peace. Another 3 months passed. The peace at the Jile Mountain was disturbed. It was not the bald-bearded man who had taken action. Some guests had come to the Jile Mountain, young masters and young ladies. Clearly, they were going to undergo the second heaven's tribulation. Therefore, they came here to train themselves to see if they could stand the thunderbolt. Every now and then, the Jile Mountain would receive some visitors for training or to refine their bodies. The 4 young masters and young ladies were from major families of the Omen Island. Commander Ma let them go after they were given enough divine origin gold. When the 4 were brought to the peak, Uncle Li woke Luli up at once. Luli put his guard up. But he didn't worry too much when he saw the 4 young masters and young ladies at the peak of the first tribulation. There were 8 escorts with the 4, but only 3 of them were at the peak of the second tribulation. Luli wouldn't be afraid even if he was at the peak of the second tribulation, let alone now. Luli had consumed all the primordial qi. He had been refining his body for more than a year and had been absorbing the energy of Thunderbolt. How strong was his physical defense now? He didn't even know himself. If he were to face Gong Ziqiang and the others, he wouldn't run away. He would fight them face to face. How come there are people here? As soon as the 4 young masters and young ladies arrived, they glanced at Luli and Uncle Li. A young master whose robe was glowing said with a frown, "Commander Ma, we don't like to be disturbed when we are cultivating. Please get rid of them, and I will give you more divine origin gold." Commander Ma didn't have the courage to get rid of Luli. He forced a smile and said, "Young Master Yu, the Jile Mountain is a big place. It won't affect us. You can go over there to cultivate. We just don't disturb each other." Young Master Yu snorted. He looked at Luli and said, "My friend, I will give you 1,000 pieces of divine origin gold. Can you make a place for us to cultivate for 3 months?" Even though the primordial qi was consumed, Luli didn't want to leave the Jile Mountain right away. He wanted to integrate the spiritual explosion skill and the soul-shattering skill first. Or perhaps he could achieve large success in the true meaning of the frost sword intent. Only then would his combat power increase greatly. Therefore, he said without hesitation, "I am sorry. I don't need divine origin gold, and I don't want to give you a place." Young Master Yu's expressions turned cold. He sent a message to Commander Ma. "Who is this punk? He doesn't know what's good for him. Young Master Yu, don't do anything rash or I will be in a difficult position." Commander Ma couldn't afford to offend either side. He replied, "I don't know his exact identity. He was sent here by Patriarch Chen of the Cloud Mountain. It is said that, what Patriarch Chen or Patriarch Lu?" Young Master Yu didn't even listen to the latter part of the sentence. He waved his hand in an overbearing manner and said, "Punk, I am Yu Feixiang of the Mega Mountain. Get off now or I will make you lose your place at the Omen Island." Luli and Uncle Li looked at each other, speechless. Even Commander Ma was confused. This young Master Yu was so full of himself. He would make others lose their place at the Omen Island at the drop of a hat. Did he think he was a demon? P.S. Chapter 4 is here. A few days ago, I spent a lot of money to hire an artist to draw a cartoonish portrait of Luli. I am satisfied with it after several changes. I will post it on the official account the day after tomorrow. You can go there and see if it has some of Luli's charm. Chapter 1883. Luli had seen many playboys like this, in the mortal world, in the divinity, and in the second heaven as well. However, there were great clans everywhere, and it was inevitable that there would be some good-for-nothings in the great clans. Some of them were pampered and spoiled since they were young. They didn't know the immensity of heaven and earth, and they had bad morals. Luli didn't want to stir up any trouble. After all, he was still in the lower middle class of the second heaven. The Black Flame Hall was enough to give him a headache. He needed time to cultivate in peace. He didn't want to deal with this young master. Young Master Yu was actually very famous on the Heavenly Devil Island. Of course, the most important reason was because his grandfather was famous. His grandfather was the Mountain Lord of the Heavenly Mountain, one of the 5 great spiritual mountains, Yu Qianghua. This was a big shot who was as famous as Heishan. He was ranked in the top 5 of the Heavenly Devil Island and was highly regarded by the Great Demon King. Luli didn't answer, nor did he stand up. He didn't want to stir up trouble, but it didn't mean that he would swallow his anger. He believed that Commander Ma would handle this well. Yu Feixiang wouldn't do anything at the Jilei Mountain, would he? Seeing the look Luli was giving him, Commander Ma became embarrassed. He quickly bowed to young Master Yu and said, "Young Master Yu, don't do anything rash. This young Master Lu is someone that Fairy Tianyun thinks highly of. If you two were to cause a ruckus, I would have no choice but to report this to the Black Mountain Palace." Humph. Young Master Yu snorted heavily, but he seemed to be afraid of Black Mountain and didn't dare to cause any more trouble. He glared at Luli with ferocity, but he didn't pay much attention to Fairy Tianyun. In fact, many people on the Heavenly Devil Island were dissatisfied with Fairy Tianyun. They thought that she was only able to occupy the Heavenly Cloud Mountain because of the Great Demon King's favor. Throughout history, Fairy Tianyun had never participated in a major battle, so the outside world did not know exactly how strong she was. She was the sister of the Great Demon King, so no one dared to cause trouble for her. The chances of her going to battle were almost zero. "Let's go there." Faced with Commander Ma's repeated bows, young Master Yu finally suppressed his anger and led the group to the other side of the mountain peak. Luli looked away and went back to cultivation. Above Luli's head, lightning flashed and thunder rumbled. They kept striking at Luli, but he absorbed them all. Luli didn't react at all. He didn't even tremble. It was as if this was not a terrifying lightning bolt, but a sweet rain instead. It was precisely because of this that young Master Yu had some misgivings and did not continue to pester him endlessly. Even though Luli appeared to be an immortal after one tribulation, he must be capable of withstanding such horrifying thunderbolt. Young Master Yu led a group of people around the edge of the mountain peak and went to the other side. They began to cultivate as well, but they dared not to rush to the core area like Luli did. Instead, they stayed at the periphery and began to attract thunderbolts carefully. Ouch! This was the first time a young mistress had experienced lightning. Her delicate body trembled as she screamed miserably. Moreover, her skin had been charred black by the electricity, and her hair was emitting black smoke. In an instant, she had turned from a top-notch beauty into a little beggar. Hearing the noise, Luli opened his eyes out of instinct and looked over. He saw the lady crawling up from the ground in embarrassment and rushing towards the outside. How could that pathetic posture have the elegance of a top-notch lady? He looked like a peasant woman. He instinctively grinned. "Ah, I'm going to die." That young lady happened to turn around and saw the smile on Luli's face. She was so shy that she rushed back with her hands covering her face and said in a sobbing tone, "No, no, I want to go home. Sister." And another lady hurried over, hugged the lady and said, "Don't cry, don't cry. How can you cultivate without suffering? You can't even stand the thunderbolts here. How can you survive the second heaven tribulation?" The young lady tidied up her hair and took a healing pellet. She pointed to Luli and said, "It's okay to suffer. That man was laughing at me. This is so shameful. Sister Hua, let's go somewhere else to cultivate. This is so shameful. Young Master Yu was enraged. He looked at Lu Li with fire in his eyes. However, Lu Li had looked away and pretended to continue sitting with his legs crossed. Young Master Yu found it hard to vent his anger, so he just hummed. After a while of comfort, the young lady managed to pull herself together. Young Master Yu began his cultivation. He rushed in and attracted 2 thunderbolts at once. Admittedly, young Master Yu's fighting capacity was not bad. He easily withstood the 2 thunderbolts. His body only trembled a bit, and his skin was not charred. After he withstood the 2 thunderbolts, his confidence was boosted. He looked at Lu Li provocatively. However, Lu Li had his eyes closed and had no intention of looking at him. Brother Xiang, you are awesome. He can withstand 2 thunderbolts at the same time. I think he will have no problem going through the thunder tribulation. Come on, Brother Xiang. People nearby shouted. Yu Feixiang's smile grew bigger. He looked at Lu Li for a bit with a trace of ruthlessness in his eyes. He kicked the ground with his legs and then flew towards Lu Li. He was going to rush into the core area. Lu Li was alarmed when someone was approaching. He put up his guard and looked over as well. He wanted to see what this young Master Yu was up to. Swish, swish, countless thunderbolts struck down from the sky. They were all aimed at Lu Li. However, Lu Li was sitting on the ground with his legs crossed, and someone was flying over from the distance. Naturally, the thunderbolts were aimed at young Master Yu. Swish, 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 swish. At first, when 3 thunderbolts struck young Master Yu, he could still stand it. But when 8 thunderbolts struck him at the same time, he could not stand it anymore. He fell down at once. Then he trembled as if he was having a seizure. Smoke came out from his hair, skin, and eyebrows. He was foaming at the mouth, rolling and twitching on the ground. Young Master! 2 warriors at the peak of the second tribulation hurried over. Lu Li was afraid that they would do something to him. He stood up and put up his guard. He stood up. Young Master Yu, who was rolling on the ground, looked at him. He felt that Lu Li was looking down at him. Lu Li didn't smile, but young Master Yu still felt that Lu Li was mocking him in silence. A sense of sorrow and indignation arose spontaneously. Whoosh! 2 warriors at the peak of the second tribulation flew over and took young Master Yu back. They fed him some healing pellets in a row. The others gathered around with concern. Lu Li smiled. It would be a miracle if he could survive the second heaven tribulation with such abilities. I will be struck by thunderbolts if I try to act tough. Lu Li murmured and continued to sit with his legs crossed. Even though he spoke in a low voice, he forgot that young Master Yu and the others were not weak. They could see him at such a close distance. Young Master Yu had just recovered a bit of strength. He stood up in anger and said, "What did you say? Say it again if you have the gut." Lu Li sat up with his legs crossed. Seeing young Master Yu bristling with anger, Lu Li smiled and said, "I didn't say anything. Young Master Yu, you had better take care of your wounds." Lu Li's words were not meant to be sarcastic, but they grated on young Master Yu's ears. Young Master Yu said angrily, "You bastard who came from nowhere. If you are a man, let's go down the mountain and have a duel." Lu Li was not that bored. He shrugged his shoulders and didn't answer. He just closed his eyes and ignored him. Commander Ma, who had been standing at the peak of the mountain, hurried over. He bowed and said, "Young Master Yu, please calm down. Anger is harmful to your health. It is not worth it." "What is not? What is important? The dignity of the Tianliang mountain is important." Chapter 1884. For many people, this was not a big deal. But for disciples of big families, face was a big deal. They were all favored ones who had never been wronged since they were young. Now that they were bullied one after another and Luli saw them at their most embarrassing state, how could they go on with their cultivation? The two young ladies, in particular, felt humiliated to be in such a sorry state in front of their own families. Luli, an outsider, was watching them. They were so ashamed that they didn't want to go on with their cultivation. Commander Ma was in a dilemma. He was caught in the middle. He couldn't afford to offend either side. If he reported this to his superiors, they would think he was incompetent and his position as commander would be revoked. He had to bow to young Master Yu and then to Luli. He almost got down on his knees and begged both sides to stop. Luli opened his eyes and saw this. He frowned. This was not the way to go on. He couldn't cultivate in peace. He didn't want to offend these young masters and young ladies too much in case Fairy Tianyun would be put in a difficult position. If the Cloud Mountain and the Heaven Mountain went to war because of him, then it would be his fault. He stood up after some thoughts and said, "How about this, young Master Yu, send one of your men out? I will take 3 moves from him and he will take 3 moves from me. Whoever is blasted off the mountain will be the loser and the loser will have to leave the Jilei Mountain. How about that?" Yu Feixiang and the others were stunned. They thought they had heard it wrong. How could a first tribulation heaven god be so arrogant? They had warriors at the peak of the second tribulation on their side. Luli could be killed in 1 move by a warrior at the peak of the second tribulation. Yu Feixiang reacted quickly. Fearing that Luli would go back on his words, he asked, "Are you serious?" "Of course. I will never go back on my words." Luli stood up lazily, looked at Yu Feixiang calmly and said, "I will give you a chance. Send someone out. If he can blast me off the mountain in 3 moves, I will leave right away." So arrogant. Young Master Yu was furious. He felt humiliated. He said coldly, "Then stand still. I will do it myself." Actually, the Jilei Mountain could not have a fight. But since Luli's bet could solve the dispute, Commander Ma took out a memory crystal to record this scene. He said, "You two can fight here, but don't use your killing moves. I can't bear the consequences if either of you dies. In addition, you are not allowed to attack the Jilei Mountain. If something happens to the Jilei Mountain, our Black Mountain Palace will not let it go." "All right." Young Master Yu readily agreed. Luli shrugged and said, "Don't worry, Commander Ma. I won't make things difficult for you." Commander Ma used a memory crystal to record this scene. Even Fairy Tianyun and Yu Qianghua would have nothing to say about it in the future. Uncle Li said nothing. Instead, he put on a mocking smile. Given Lu Li's defensive power, not even the warriors at the peak of the second tribulation could blast him off the mountain, let alone Yu Feixiang. Buzz! Yu Feixiang took out a long knife, but after thinking about it, he put it away and took out a purple longbow. Clearly, both the long knife and the longbow were primordial treasures. It seemed that Yu Feixiang was favored in the family. Using the longbow to attack Luli was a good choice. He might not be able to kill Luli, but at least he could shoot Luli off the mountain. As long as he could shoot Luli off the mountain, Luli would lose. More importantly, the longbow wouldn't cause any damage to the Jilei Mountain. "Be careful. My glaze bow is very powerful," Yu Feixiang said in a dignified manner. Unfortunately, he was covered in black and his hair and eyebrows were messy. He didn't look dignified at all. Instead, he looked funny. Buzzing, with the injection of divine energy, the bow began to glow. The glow was dazzling. There was airflow flowing around the bow. A surge of qi and energy spread out from the bow, making people feel suffocated. "Hoi!" Yu Feixiang pulled the bowstring. He only plucked it once, but 13 rays of light shot out. 13 rays of light rushed over like 13 dragons and hit Luli from 3 directions in an instant. Bang, 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 bang! More than a dozen muffled sounds came out with echoes. It was as if someone had hit a bell. What happened next stunned everyone. Luli only took a dozen steps back. Apart from some white spots on his body, he didn't suffer any injuries. How? Yu Feixiang's jaw dropped. He was already shocked that Lu Li wasn't smashed away. How come Lu Li was unharmed? Lu Li didn't have any powerful primordial treasures on him. What was his body made of? Did he have a primordial treasures hidden in his body? Second move. Continue. Lu Li walked over in strides. He even curled his finger. As a matter of fact, he did it on purpose. Otherwise, a warrior at the peak of the One Tribulation realm, not even the primordial treasures could make him step back. Buzzing, Yu Feixiang refused to believe it. He poured in divine energy like crazy. This time, he poured in divine energy for the time for half an incense stick to burn. Then, he pulled the bowstring with one hand and poured in divine energy. Swish, swish. The divine bow shone brightly, and endless multicolored light condensed together. This time, it did not shoot out 13 light dragons, but 5 light dragons. However, these 5 light dragons were twice as strong as the previous light dragons. The 5 dragons of light roared and hit Lu Li in an instant. This time, Lu Li stepped back for hundreds of steps. He was at the edge of the peak and almost fell off. Such a shame, the warriors sighed. They were so close to smashing Lu Li off the peak, but he was still so close. Uncle Li and Commander Ma were surprised. Lu Li could kill warriors at the peak of the Second Tribulation realm. How could such an attack push him back so far? Lu Li was still unharmed. He walked over in strides, crooked his finger to Yu Feixiang and said, "You have one last move." "Okay." Yu Feixiang shouted. He poured divine energy into the bow. This time, he poured in divine energy for the time for one incense stick to burn. By then, his face had turned pale. Following his roar, all the rays of light from the divine bow disappeared. 2 giant dragons appeared and roared. The glazed bow had different powers in the hands of different people. In the hands of a Second Tribulation realm god, 1 dragon of light could be shot out easily. The fewer the dragons of light, the more powerful it would be. Shooting out 2 dragons of light was the best Yu Feixiang could do. Swish, swish. 2 huge dragons of light whooshed over. They were so powerful that it seemed they were going to tear the sky apart. Even Li Tian was shocked. Could Lu Li stand it? If he was smashed off the peak, he would be humiliated and have to leave in disappointment. Boom, boom. 2 muffled explosions were heard. Once again, everyone was dumbfounded. This time, Lu Li only took 3 steps back before he was able to stand up. Apart from his torn robes and 2 white spots on his chest, he didn't suffer any other injuries. Hiss, hiss. This time, even the Second Tribulation realm gods gasped. They looked at Lu Li as if he was a monster. Only now did they realize that Lu Li had been faking it. This was his real defense. He had given Yu Feixiang hope on purpose, but in the end, Yu Feixiang had lost all hope. Chapter 1885. Lu Li had killed many warriors and several of them were at the peak of the Second Tribulation. Commander Ma knew this but not Uncle Li. He knew Lu Li's physical defense was strong but he didn't expect it to be this strong. He truly lives up to his reputation. Commander Ma nodded. It was lucky that he didn't offend Lu Li. Lu Li was so young and he could have such a strong body. He could kill warriors at the peak of the Second Tribulation. Although there was still a long way to go before reaching the great success divine body, many powerful warriors at the second and third realm of the immortal realm were on the path of immortal body. There were many warriors at the initial success of immortal body as well. But for millions of years, there were only so many warriors at the ultimate success of immortal body. Immortal body was difficult to cultivate. Not only did the warrior have to have a unique body, but he also had to figure out the way to cultivate the immortal body. On top of that, he had to be lucky and consume a large amount of strange energy. The world was fair. Supreme immortal body was strong but difficult to cultivate. If it were easy, the world would be full of people with supreme immortal body. Therefore, Luli still had a long way to go before he could achieve the real supreme immortal body. That being said, since Luli had reached the initial success of immortal body, he was a powerful warrior worthy of respect. At least, he was more powerful than Commander Ma, not to mention that Luli was so young. How is this possible? Yu Feixiang was still in disbelief. Before, Luli had given him hope. Now, he couldn't accept such a drastic change. Pointing to Luli, Yu Feixiang said, "You must be wearing the primordial spirit armor or else you cannot have such strong defense." Luli rolled his eyes. Commander Ma and Uncle Li pouted. So what if Luli was wearing the primordial spirit armor? So what? How could Yu Feixiang say such stupid words? Luli didn't want to waste time with Yu Feixiang. He rubbed his fists and said, "Okay, it is my turn. Young Master Yu, do you want to take 3 moves from me or do you want to send someone else? I suggest you send a warrior at the peak of the second tribulation. I am afraid that I can kill you with 1 punch given your weak body." I will do it," Yu Feixiang was furious. Just as he was about to say that he would do it, a man at the peak of the second tribulation said, "Well, let me experience your skills. If you can knock me off the mountain, we will leave Jilei Mountain immediately. We will never pester you." Yu Feixiang snapped out of his daze. Although he had the Grand Spirit Heavenly Artifact's defensive armor, other than that, his other defensive abilities were far inferior. The warrior at the peak of the second tribulation was one of Luli's uncles. Even though Luli was from a branch of the family, he had the primordial spirit armor. Luli wouldn't be able to kill him even if he just stood there and let Luli blast him away. "All right." Luli nodded. He walked over step by step until he stood in front of the middle-aged warrior at the peak of the second tribulation. Swinging his fist, Luli said, "I am going to attack you. Are you ready?" Buzz. The middle-aged man's armor lit up. At the same time, his body lit up with a yellow light. He nodded and said, "I'm ready. Just attack." "All right, I'm coming. Watch my God-exterminating fist of creation." Luli swung his fist and swung it around. With a whistling sound, he punched at the middle-aged warrior's chest. Everyone's psychic power was focused on Luli's fist. The gloves on Luli's fists were clearly the Grand Spirit Heavenly Artifact. Everyone was nervous. Bang! With a slight sound, as if a wooden stick was knocking on cold iron, the middle-aged man at the peak of the second tribulation didn't step back. Instead, he didn't even shake one bit. The middle-aged warrior blinked, confused. He felt that Luli didn't put any strength into his punch. He didn't feel anything. Was Luli going easy on him, or was he just too weak? I see that you are quite good at defense." Luli snorted and said with pride, "Then I will have to use my strongest move. Watch me, Invincible Meteor Fist of Devastating Thunder." Luli waved his fist again, making a loud noise. This time, his fist landed on the middle-aged warrior's chest with a shrill noise. With a muffled sound, the middle-aged warrior still didn't move one bit. Luli's seemingly powerful move couldn't even make the middle-aged warrior step back. "Ha ha ha ha!" Yu Feixiang and the others couldn't help but laugh. They were relieved. Luli couldn't smash their man away, which meant that the 2 sides were even. They had saved some face. Later, they could send someone at the peak of the second tribulation realm and blast Luli off the mountain in 1 move. What the hell? The middle-aged warrior at the peak of the second tribulation realm was confused. He didn't feel any strength either. Was Luli faking it? What was his purpose? Was he a clown hired by a monkey? Fine. Luli exhaled and said with an enigmatic expression, "Brother, I have to admit that your defense is good. You deserve me to use my Lu family's peerless fist. You must be careful. I am afraid that this punch will be too powerful and kill you." Yu Feixiang and the two young ladies mocked Lu Li. Lu Li's attack was not so good, but he was bragging. Brother? His invincible fist? Was it another fist of devastation? Ha! Lu Li bent his legs slightly and made a profound posture. This time, he didn't wave his fist. He just swung his fist slowly at the middle-aged warrior at the second tribulation realm. His speed was so slow that it could make others spit blood. Watch out! Lu Li shouted, which scared the others. He shouted, "Taste my invincible fist, tortoise fist!" Lu Li's fist was about to make contact with the middle-aged warrior's body. At that moment, Lu Li's gloves glowed and energy surged out from his 720 acupoints. At the same time, he used the spiritual explosion skill and his fist landed on the warrior's chest. Some of the surging energy was blocked by the mysterious spirit armor, but some penetrated into the warrior's body and exploded. Boom! There was a muffled explosion, like a landslide, and the middle-aged martial artist's body flew backwards like a broken sack. Moreover, blood was wildly gushing out of his mouth, his face was pale as snow, and his chest had caved in. It was obvious that his internal organs had been severely damaged, and his ribs had been broken. Boom! The middle-aged warrior at the peak of the second tribulation realm was smashed into a mountain to the west of the Jilei mountain. The mountain collapsed and rocks rolled down, burying the warrior alive. "Uncle!" Yu Feixiang exclaimed. His eyes were filled with astonishment. The others were the same. Their eyes were filled with confusion. How come Lu Li's last move seemed to be slow and powerless, but he could injure their uncle so badly? Was the tortoise fist really the invincible fist passed down from the Lu family? I told you to be careful, but you didn't listen. Lu Li tidied up his tattered clothes as if nothing had happened and tidied up his messy hair. Then he said calmly, "Luckily, I held back 90% of my strength. Otherwise, this man would have been smashed into a mist of blood with nothing left. Okay, you have lost. Go down the mountain and don't disturb me from cultivating." Me? Uncle Li and Commander Ma almost spat out blood. Lu Li was so young and he dared to call himself an old man? Then, are they all old fogies? P.S. A few days ago I spent a lot of money to hire a cartoonish portrait of Lu Li. I am satisfied with it after several changes. I will post it on the official account tomorrow. You can go there and see if it looks like Lu Li. Chapter 1886. Lu Li smashed a warrior at the peak of the second tribulation realm who was wearing the primordial spirit armor. Though spiritual blast and soul shattering hadn't been integrated yet, Lu Li's attacks had been enhanced. A warrior at the peak of the second tribulation realm flew over and dug the man out of the mountain. Yu Feixiang didn't want to admit defeat even though the Heaven Mass Mountain had lost. He said coldly, "Punk, you must have used some sorcery. This time doesn't count. Let's make another bet." "Ha ha!" Uncle Li sneered. Even Commander Ma couldn't stand it anymore. Yu Feixiang was so shameless. So what if Lu Li had used sorcery? Sorcery was also a skill. In this world, even sorcery was one's own ability. It was a means to kill enemies, let alone sorcery. The two young ladies of the Heaven Mass Mountain blushed. Yu Feixiang had lost his composure and they were embarrassed. The other escorts looked solemn. Lu Li could hurt a warrior at the peak of the second tribulation in one punch, which meant that he had the ability to kill everyone here. If Yu Feixiang and the others were killed by Lu Li, it would be a serious matter. Lu Li didn't get angry. He had seen too many rascals like this. He said with a smile, "I suggest you think carefully before you speak. Don't disgrace the Heaven Mass Mountain. To put it bluntly, if it weren't for your master, I would have killed you. I have killed many warriors at the peak of the second tribulation realm." "Ha ha, you talk big." Yu Feixiang was furious. He was about to say something when a warrior at the peak of the second tribulation realm pulled his hand and said, Young master, forget it. Let's go back. We can get our dignity back in the future. The escorts were afraid something might go wrong. They could tell Lu Li was on the verge of losing his temper. If he went on like this, it would be a disaster. Their goal was to protect Yu Feixiang and the others. They didn't want anything to go wrong. Yu Feixiang glared at the warrior at the peak of the second tribulation realm. He glanced at all the escorts. They all looked serious and winked at him. They must be afraid of Lu Li. Commander Ma tried to smooth things over. Young Master Yu, please calm down. We don't get to know each other without a fight. This is against the rules of the Black Mountain Palace. We made such a big noise that the Black Mountain Palace must have noticed. How about we let it go for my sake? Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Before Commander Ma could finish his sentence, a few figures flew over from afar. One of them had a strong aura and should be an elder of the Black Mountain Palace. Yu Feixiang swept a few glances and was too lazy to face the people from Black Mountain Palace. He waved his hand and said, "Let's go." The guards all heaved a sigh of relief. This time, they had only come to Jilei Mountain for training. Tianliang Mountain was not too far from here, so there were no elders escorting them. If Lu Li really wanted to kill Yu Feixiang and the others, they would all die. Brat, this isn't over. Just you wait. Yu Feixiang glared at Lu Li. Lu Li secretly cursed him for being an idiot. He walked to the central area and sat down with his legs crossed to continue cultivating. As for the people from the Black Mountain Palace, he couldn't be bothered to negotiate with them. He would just let Commander Ma handle them. Sure enough, an elder and a few commanders from the Black Mountain Palace had arrived. The moment the elder arrived, he scanned the crowd and asked, "What's going on? Someone is fighting in Jilei Mountain?" "Elder He, this is what happened." Commander Ma walked over with respect and reported in a low voice. Then he gave the memory crystal to Patriarch He. Patriarch He glanced over and then looked at Lu Li in surprise. Lu Li was already in closed-door cultivation. He didn't want to talk to Patriarch He. Patriarch He nodded and said, "You have done a good job. If something like this happens again, report at once." Now that Yu Feixiang and the others had left, Patriarch He couldn't make things difficult for Patriarch He. He thought about it and said, "Keep an eye on Lu Li. Don't let anything happen to him. Otherwise, Fairy Tian Yun will make trouble for our master." Patriarch He left. Commander Ma looked at Lu Li and felt his head was hurting. Lu Li was really a little devil. If anything were to happen, the higher-ups would make trouble for him immediately. All Commander Ma wanted was for Lu Li to leave the Jilei Mountain as soon as possible. On this day, Commander Ma would be on tenterhook. After the storm, Lu Li went back to his previous life. He didn't care about Yu Feixiang's threats at all. Would Yu Feixiang ask patriarchs of the Tianliang Mountain to make trouble here? This was the territory of the Palace of Black Mountain. Patriarchs of the Wuliang Mountain wouldn't do anything to Fairy Tian Yun, not to mention that this was the territory of the Palace of Black Mountain. Without the primordial chaos, Lu Li's physical growth was slowing down just by absorbing Thunderbolt. At first, Lu Li was not used to it. Later, he remembered Fairy Tian Yun's words that, more haste, less speed. Lu Li calmed down. After all, he could cultivate divine energy here and integrate spiritual explosion and soul-shattering skills. He could also study the fundamental principle of sword intent and frost. His life was fulfilling. Soon, half a year had passed. Lu Li had been in closed-door cultivation without waking up even once. Finally, spiritual explosion and soul-shattering skills were integrated. Even though it was just the beginning, Lu Li was still excited. Spiritual explosion was to transmit strength into the body and then explode. Soul-shattering had a vibration wave of strength. When the strength was transmitted into the body, it would turn into waves and vibrate in. The two were in conflict. Recently, Lu Li found a compatible point. He could make the strength explode as soon as it entered the body. However, it was not one layer of strength, but multiple layers of strength. When the strength entered the enemy's body, it would explode and injure the enemy. In theory, it was simple, but in practice, it was difficult. The control of strength must be exquisite. It had to be deduced and verified repeatedly. In the land of illusion, the speed of calculation was 10 times faster. As long as Luli could get started, he believed that he would not be far away from great success. Recently, he had been studying the fundamental principle of sword intent. Unfortunately, this fundamental principle was too abstruse. Luli planned to go to the Demon Mountain after he successfully integrated spiritual explosion. By then, he could go to the stone to study and cultivate. After half a year of cultivation, Luli found a problem. Absorbing thunderbolts slowed down the growth of his body again. Maybe his body had reached a certain level, or maybe his body had developed resistance to the energy of thunderbolts, or maybe the energy of thunderbolts could only strengthen his body up to this level. Later on, he would need more advanced and strange energy. Luli was disappointed. He had thought that thunderbolts could improve his body quickly. When his body was 10 times stronger, he would have the ability to fight against powerful warriors of the Hall of Black Flames. Of course, Luli did not stop absorbing the energy of thunderbolt. In the past, the energy of thunderbolts could only nourish his body and nothing else. Now, the energy could be used for offense and defense. Naturally, Luli wanted to absorb more. Well, when I integrate spiritual explosion and soul shattering, I will go back to the Mountain of Clouds and the Demon Mountain. Luli made up his mind. It had been some time since he left the Mountain of Clouds. It was time for him to go back. He wondered how many worms of the void on the second level of the Tower of Monsters had been divided. It has been a long time. I wonder how much primordial chaos chi is in the chaos secret area. I should ask Fairy Tianyun if I can go back to the chaos secret area again. Luli had an idea. Thunderbolts could not strengthen his body quickly, but primordial chaos chi could. If he could absorb the primordial energy once more, his physical body would improve significantly. Wait! Luli remembered something else. When he was in the chaos secret area, he engraved the traces of Great Tao into his body. Those traces of Great Tao were so abstruse that he didn't even have the time to study them. The traces of Great Tao contained the Tao and principles of heaven and earth and explained the profound meanings of heaven and earth. Many people learned many laws and fundamental principles from the traces of Great Tao. Luli had engraved the traces of Great Tao into his body, but he hadn't studied them for real. Maybe he could learn something from them. Let me try. Chapter 1887. 5 days later, Luli stopped studying the traces of the Great Tao. The mark of Tao was engraved, and it could absorb primordial chaos chi. Theoretically speaking, it should be the same as the mark of Tao in the Chaos Secret Realm. However, Luli felt there was something missing. It was as if he had drawn a dragon without the eye. In the past, the imitation had a form but not a spirit. Now that there was a spirit, there was still something missing. Something was missing. The mark of Tao in his body could only absorb primordial chaos chi. It could not help him learn any fundamental principles or laws. Luli decided not to waste any more time. He continued to integrate spiritual explosion and soul shattering. As time went on, the improvement of thunderbolts was slowing down. That being said, the thunderbolts had surged into his 720 acupoint. In the future, he would not have to worry about energy consumption. The amount of energy he used was like a grain of sand in the seashore compared to the endless energy in his acupoints. Luli had been cultivating at the Jile Mountain for a long time. Of course, that was only for him. For Li Tian and the others, 100 years of closed-door cultivation was nothing. They had a long life. Thousands of years could pass by in a blink of an eye. Another 4 months passed. Luli stopped cultivating. He opened his eyes and was delighted. Uncle Lee noticed it at once. He asked Luli, "Master, I think you have made great progress again." "Yes, I have." Luli smiled. He stared at Uncle Lee and said, "How about, Uncle Lee, you try it?" "No, no." Uncle Lee felt a chill down his spine. Luli was improving too fast. Even he said he had made some progress during this period of closed-door cultivation. He must have made great progress. Uncle Lee would not go looking for trouble. Ha ha. Luli waved his hand and said, "Let's go back to the Cloud Mountain after I rest for a couple of days. I will take you to the Demon Mountain." Okay. Uncle Lee nodded. Fairy Tianyun had compensated him by going to the Demon Mountain 3 times. It would be safer to go with Luli. In the past, Luli was with him. Now, he was with Luli. Luli sat with his legs crossed and fell asleep. 2 days later, he woke up feeling refreshed. He got up and waved at Uncle Lee. The two of them walked down Jile Mountain. Hearing that Luli was going back, Commander Ma was relieved. He put on a big smile and was extremely polite. Luli stopped and said, "Commander Ma, you are so hospitable. All of a sudden, I don't want to leave. I want to cultivate here for another 100 years. Don't." The smile on Commander Ma's face froze. He rolled his eyes and said, "Young Master Lu, Jile Mountain is just a small place. Young Master Lu has a god body, so you should have a bigger stage. You should go to other places and absorb more strange energies. That's the only way to complete your god body." Of course, the Jile Mountain will always welcome young Master Lu back. Ha ha ha! Luli laughed out loud and left with Uncle Lee towards the Cloud Mountain. It was not until Luli disappeared from their sight that Commander Ma and the other warriors felt relieved. Luli is out. There were 2 scouts at the peak of the Second Tribulation Realm monitoring the Jile Mountain. The 2 scouts were at the peak of the Second Tribulation Realm, and they were good at hiding. Therefore, not only Luli, but Commander Ma and the others didn't notice anything. The 2 scouts returned to the cave where the bald-bearded man and the others were staying and reported. The bald-bearded man and the others were cultivating. They opened their eyes at once. After such a long time, Luli finally came out. "Let's go." The bald-bearded man flew out. He waved his hand and said, "Run in a straight line. Go to the front and set up in advance to intercept him. Run as far as you can after you kill Luli. Don't leave any traces behind." Everyone had absolute trust in the bald-bearded man. Without wasting any time, they rushed towards the Cloud Mountain at the top of their speed. The 2 scouts explored the way in front of them, and they easily avoided those lurking nearby. Luli had Uncle Lee with him, and he didn't like to be too conspicuous, so he walked slowly. After 1 day, the bald-bearded man and the others got to the front. The bald-bearded man sent out a scout to track Luli and the others. After they were sure of Luli's whereabouts, the bald-bearded man and the others began to set up formations in front of Luli. Their formation was different from Luli's. In the mountain, the bald-bearded man and the others gathered some strange marks of Tao. The marks of Tao could seal up the space nearby. Even if there was an earth-shattering battle in there, the outside wouldn't know. The bald-bearded man was not afraid of Fairy Tianyun, but he didn't want to make a big fuss. After all, Fairy Tianyun was the Demon King's favorite sister. Once the Demon King was displeased, the bald-bearded man and the others would not be able to survive at the Omen Island. "Something is wrong," Luli suddenly stopped. Uncle Lee was alarmed. He used psychic power to check and asked after a while, "What is it, Master? I don't see anything wrong. I just feel like there is a pair of eyes staring at us from behind," Luli said with a frown. He added, "I can't put my finger on it, but I just have this feeling." With that said, Luli closed his eyes, trying to figure out where this feeling came from. He didn't feel it was a warning in his soul. Rather, it was coming from other parts of his body. Well, the trace of the Great Path. Luli's soul trembled. This feeling came from the trace of the great path in his body. Blinking in surprise, Luli murmured, "Is it because the trace of the great path is in harmony with heaven and earth? Is that why I am so sensitive to things around me?" The trace of the great path was fake. Luli had been studying it for days but to no avail. He didn't expect that it could sharpen his senses. Luli thought for a while and let out the bloodvine. Then, he went on with Uncle. After the time for 2 incense sticks to burn, Blood Fairy said, "Master, there is a powerful warrior following you from thousands of miles away. He is strong and he can cloak himself. If it were not for the fact that the ground trembled when he was walking, I would not have sensed him." I was right. Luli was shocked again. It was not because he was being followed. It was because of the strange ability of the trace of the great path. It had enhanced his senses. He could even sense a powerful warrior following him from thousands of miles away. Who is following me? Luli could not figure it out. He had killed Gong Zizai and the others. The 2 warriors at the peak of the second tribulation would not have the courage to come again. Was it Yu Feixiang's man? Let's speed up. Luli waved his hand to Uncle. At the moment, he was between the Jile Mountain and the Cloudy Mountain. He had to press on. While he was running, he kept his eyes closed. He could sense any movement around him in advance. Something is wrong. Chapter 1888. Someone is ambushing us. A glint of coldness rose in Uncle Li's eyes. He trusted Lu Li's judgment. Someone was following them, and someone was ambushing them. Someone was trying to kill them. "Master, what should we do?" Lu Li was more powerful than him, and Uncle Li was not strong enough. Uncle Li had to ask for Lu Li's opinion. Lu Li waved his hand and said, "Go to the mountain. I will take care of it." Uncle Li was too weak. Lu Li didn't need his help and he would only be a burden. Lu Li took out the mountain and put Uncle Li in. Then, he kicked the ground and the mountain cracked. Lu Li dashed to the left. He changed his direction and sped up. He wanted to mess up the enemy's plan. Only by messing up the enemy could he have a chance. He believed that whoever was trying to kill him was not an average second tribulation god. The enemy must be at least at the peak of the second tribulation or even a 3 tribulation god. I hope there won't be a 3 tribulation god. Lu Li prayed to himself. That being said, there were few 3 tribulation god. At the Omen Island, only the patriarchs of the 5 mountains and some masters were 3 tribulation god. There were less than 53 tribulation god on the entire Omen Island. All the 3 tribulation god were famous powerful warriors of the Omen Island. They must consider the consequences before dealing with Lu Li. They must consider whether it was worth it to offend Fairy Tianyun or the Asmodean Lord. The more important a person was, the more cautious they would be. Lu Li was fast. He was not far from the peak of the second tribulation god. The improvement in his physical body had increased his speed. Therefore, as he ran, the scouts became anxious. Lu Li changed his direction and the bald-bearded man's plan was disrupted. Whoosh! The bald-bearded man suddenly released divine energy into the sky. The divine energy shot up like fireworks and bloomed in midair. Everyone within a radius of 3,000 miles could see it. He sped up and went after Lu Li. Thousands of miles away, in a mountain, the bald-bearded man and the others were still waiting for Lu Li to walk into the trap. After the divine energy was released, the 5 of them were shocked. This was a signal sent by their men. The meaning was clear. Lu Li had run away. Go! Their plan was useless. The bald-bearded man and the others would not wait here. They rushed toward the signal. The 5 warriors at the peak of the second tribulation god were fast. In the time for a few breaths, they had covered the distance of thousands of miles. This way, chase. They found the mark left behind by the scout, turned around, and ran. They were all very fast, especially the bearded baldy. He was several times faster than a peak second tribulation cultivator. With such a fast speed, the group traveled tens of millions of miles in just an hour. With so many powerhouses running wildly, the martial artists hiding nearby were frightened. After this group of people ran past, the cultivators hiding nearby all had the intention to watch the show and followed them from afar. What if the experts fought and both sides died? It was a good opportunity for them to make some money off the dead. 2 hours later, Luli stopped. He was surrounded by 3 people. The 2 scouts and the bald bearded man were the fastest. It took them 2 hours to catch up with Luli and successfully block his way. Since he could not run away, Luli stopped. He was not too afraid of 3 warriors at the peak of the second tribulation. After fleeing for so long, he had only caught up to 3 peak second tribulation heavenly gods. It seemed that there were no 3 tribulation heavenly gods who wanted to kill him. 3. Luli said coldly, "We don't know each other, do we? Why are you chasing me? You should at least let me know if I am going to die." "Pretty boy, you are good at running." The bearded baldy touched his tattooed bald head. He glanced over to Luli, which gave Luli goosebumps. The bald bearded man even stuck out his tongue and said, "We are not chasing you. We just want to make friends with you and have some fun since you are so handsome." "Get lost, old rabbit." Luli felt his stomach churned. He said angrily, "Go back and play with your dad. If you don't get out of my way, I will not stop until you are dead." "Ha ha ha." The bearded baldy didn't get angry at all. Instead, a strange glow rose in his eyes. He grinned and said, "You have character. I like wild horses like you. I will teach you a lesson and let you understand how happy it is to be with me." Bah! Luli couldn't stand it anymore. He spat and dashed away. Instead of going after the bearded baldy, he went after a warrior at the peak of the second tribulation heavenly god realm on his left. He could tell that the bearded baldy was the most powerful among the 3. Naturally, he would go for the weaker one first. Charge! The bearded baldy and the other 2 scouts dashed toward Luli. The 3 of them attacked from 3 different directions, ready to injure or kill Luli directly. None of them had taken out their weapons yet. They wanted to see if they could take down Luli first. The 2 scouts knew the bearded baldy's hobby very well. After all, Luli could be killed or sent to Yenhong when he was captured by the bearded baldy. Luli didn't release the worms of the void. He was overjoyed to see the scout in front of him had changed his hand into a claw. This man wanted to capture him? That was wishful thinking. Swish, when the scout was 100 feet away from Luli, a green vine suddenly darted out from the scout's sleeve and wrapped around Luli's waist like a viper. Luli, on the other hand, was not surprised at all. He punched at the man's claw. Crack, crack, crack. There came some sounds of bones cracking. All the bones in the hand of the warrior at the peak of the second tribulation were crushed by Luli. With a miserable cry, the scout was smashed away. The green vine dragged Luli along with it. Phew, phew, from behind Luli came some noises. The bearded baldy and the other powerful warrior had arrived. Luli paid no attention to them. He landed and stomped on the ground. He sped up and caught up with the one in front of him. Go to hell! That warrior took out a poisonous spear and tried to stab at Luli. Still, Luli ignored it and punched at the warrior's head. Clank bang! The spear landed on Luli's chest. There came a sound of metal colliding. Surprisingly, the spear didn't go in. Luli used the soul-shattering skill, a combination of spiritual explosion and soul-shattering. He smashed the warrior's head with one punch. The soul-shattering skill is so powerful. My strength has increased by several times. Luli was overjoyed. The combination of the 2 skills had increased his strength by several times and his offensive power had soared. He could kill a warrior at the peak of the second tribulation with one punch. Bang! Bang! Almost at the same time, the bearded Baldy and the other warrior made their move. The bearded Baldy slapped at Lu Li's back with one hand while the other one took out a weapon and cut at Lu Li's left leg. Lu Li was smashed away. Apart from the clothes on his back being torn apart, Lu Li's back was not injured at all. There was only a faint palm print. The other warrior cut at Lu Li's leg with his saber, but it only left a faint trace of blood. Even though they had a good estimate of Lu Li's combat strength, the current situation was still beyond the expectations of the two. Looking at their comrade whose head was smashed, they didn't show any grief or anger. Instead, their eyes were filled with fear and solemnity. They had thought that the price offered by Yen Hong was high enough. It was just to kill a kid. Now it seemed that the price was far from enough. Lu Li killed one of their companions in one move, which made the bearded Baldy and the other one lose their confidence. Kill him. Don't leave him alive. Don't hold back. The bearded Baldy shouted. A machete with a hook appeared in his hand. At the same time, there came three noises from the distance. Their other three companions had caught up. I don't want to leave you alive. Chapter 1889. Who is that bald guy? How come he looks so disgusting? He is wearing a red robe. I don't know if he is a man or a woman, but he is ugly. How dare they try to kill Lu Li? How bold of them! Lu Li killed several warriors at the peak of the second rank not long ago. Shoo, hush. That bald guy is Baldy. If he hears you, you will all die. What? Baldy? Yes, this is what the legendary Baldy looks like. Lu Li is doomed. Baldy is a famous villain at the Omen Island. He is as powerful as an average heaven god of 3 tribulation. Looks like things are going to get out of hand this time. Now that Lu Li is dead, Fairy Tianyun will be furious. I heard that Lu Li is her gigolo. Dozens of alerted warriors were hiding within a radius of 300 miles from Lu Li. They didn't dare to get close. They could only use psychic power to check from afar. They were looking forward to the death of Lu Li and Baldy so that they could make a fortune out of the dead. Charge! Lu Li rushed out with a roar. He had been cultivating at the Jilei Mountain for several years and had absorbed so much primordial qi. He could use the energy in his acupoints to defend himself. Lu Li's physical defense was quite strong now. Lu Li had nothing to fear as long as he didn't run into Heaven God of 3 tribulation. Therefore, even though there were 3 more Heaven God of the 2nd tribulation, Lu Li didn't care. He dashed on like a dragon, aiming at the warrior at the peak of the 2nd tribulation next to Baldy. This warrior was similar to the one Lu Li just killed. Lu Li could kill him as soon as he punched him in the head. Swish, that being said, this warrior was fast. He didn't intend to fight Lu Li head-on. When Lu Li was close to him, he turned around and moved to the side. At the same time, he swung his saber downward, trying to cut Lu Li's legs. Lu Li didn't pay attention to the saber at all. He looked to the other side because Baldy's saber with a hook was coming at him. This saber was different from the average chaos treasure. Lu Li felt it was much more powerful. There was a faint, evil glint on it. Something evil must have been refined in it. Buzzing, the saber came at Lu Li with a gust of wind. At that moment, Lu Li saw an illusion. He saw many ghosts coming at him with their claws and fangs. Bang! Lu Li didn't even feel anything. He was smashed away. His vision became clear again. He looked at his chest and was stunned. There was a deep cut on his chest. This old rabbit's attack power is very strong. Lu Li was taken aback. He looked at the curved saber with a hook. Soon, he saw the strange lines on the saber. He couldn't help but ask, "You refined this saber yourself?" "Ah." The bearded Baldy laughed as he flew toward Huang Xiaolong. "Pretty boy, you have good eyesight." In the past, this Lord Baldy went to explore the 3rd heaven and learned an ancient technique in an ancient forbidden land. It allows me to inscribe heavenly Tao runes on a primordial spirit heavenly treasure, multiplying the weapon's power. How about it? Are you moved? If you follow Grandpa Baldy, I'll teach you this ancient technique. Bah! Luli felt disgusted by the evil look in the bald bearded man's eyes. 3 men were running towards him from the distance. Luli thought of something and rushed towards the bald bearded man. When he arrived near the bald man, his divine mountain flickered with light. Endless golden void worms roared out and surrounded the bald man's body. Whoosh! At the same time, Luli twisted his body and moved to the left of the bald bearded man. The bald bearded man swung his saber at Luli. More ghosts appeared in front of Luli. Luli's back was hit and he was smashed away. Take him down. Don't kill him. The voice of the bearded bald man woke Luli up. He saw 3 people rushing towards him. They were swinging their weapons at 3 different places on his body, but none of them aimed at the vital parts. Seeing this, a cold smile appeared on Luli's face. Just now, he twisted his body, hoping that the bald bearded man would cut him to this side. Luli released the golden void worms to stall the bald bearded man so that Luli could kill the 3 first. Hoi! Luli slapped the ground with one hand. He didn't care about the 3 weapons coming at him and swept at the 2 in a domineering manner. The 2 did not expect that Luli could be so ferocious that he could ignore their saber strike. A glint of ferocity rose in their eyes. One of them swung his saber and used a secret skill to increase his strength. He hacked at Luli while the other one's saber glowed and spat out waves of fire. He was trying to tear Luli apart. Bang, 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 ah, ah. 4 muffled explosions rang out, followed by 2 blood-curdling screams. The 2 of them flew out at the same time. Their chests were badly mutilated, and their armors were completely shattered. Their ribs were broken, and their internal organs had long since been shattered. Boom! Another man's attack landed on Luli, but his sword was bounced off. He looked back at the 2 men who were knocked away. He was terrified. Luli had seriously injured them in one move. Hoi! Luli paid no attention to this man. He dashed toward the 2 that were smashed away. The bald bearded man wanted to kill all the void worms in his body. Seeing this, he flew into a rage and shouted, "Bastard, how dare you!" Boom, boom. The answer was Luli's 2 punches. The 2 warriors were badly injured and slowed down. The 2 of them used different skills, trying to force Luli back. Still, Luli ignored it and killed the 2 at once. Hiss, hiss, his defense is so strong. The bald bearded man and the other 2 warriors gasped. They had attacked for so many times, and yet Luli only had 2 wounds on him. Both were flesh wounds. His bones and internal organs were not hurt. His body was strong and his wounds were healing fast. In the time for a few incense sticks to burn, his wounds would be healed. What a strong body! I like it! The bearded bald-headed man stuck out his scarlet tongue, which made Luli feel sick. The bearded bald-headed man winked at the remaining 2 men. The 2 men surrounded Luli from the left and right, forming a triangle with the bearded bald-headed man. Charge! The bald-bearded man was the first one to come. Tens of thousands of void worms swarmed into his body, but they did not affect him much. Luli sensed that all the worms of the void were suppressed by some strange energy. Whoosh! 2 warriors came from the left and right. Luli put on his knuckles to defend against the bald-bearded man's machete. He wanted to stop this man's attack first and then release more void worms to kill the other 2. When the bald-bearded man was the last one, Luli would kill him slowly. Now! The bald-bearded man shouted. His machete whooshed over. The strange patterns on the machete glowed. Once again, Luli could see many demons and ghosts. At the same time, the other 2 made their moves as well. Instead of using weapons, they took out strange objects. One of them took out a blood-red centipede from his sleeve. The centipede sneaked into Luli's nose and disappeared. Chapter 1890. Since ancient times, when there was good, there would be evil. Some took the path of righteousness, improving their abilities step by step. Some resorted to unorthodox means. As long as they could kill their enemies, they would have no scruples. This was evil. There was no doubt that the bald-bearded man and the other two resorted to evil means. This was their common trick. Since it was rare, average warriors would not know how to defend against it. They would fall for it easily and then be killed mercilessly. At the second heaven, there was no such thing as good or evil. As long as it could kill enemies, it was a skill. Of course, if some evil and vicious skills were used and too many innocent people were harmed, many powerful warriors would not sit by and do nothing. The centipede snuck into Lu Li's nose and dashed into his mind directly, reaching his soul in a flash. The centipede was a vicious insect called soul-feasting centipede. It was specialized in devouring souls. Usually, soul attacks were intangible. The strange energy would sneak into a warrior's soul quietly and destroy it. But this centipede was a real one. It could eat the soul directly. The green liquid was corrosive, but it did not corrode the warrior's body. Instead, it seeped into Lu Li's pores through his face and into his meridians. It corroded Lu Li's divine energy and messed up his divine energy at the same time. Divine energy was the source of a warrior's strength. Once the divine energy was corroded and messed up, no skill could be used, no matter how powerful it was. This was the means that the bald-bearded man and the other two had always used. The other three had their own vicious means as well. Unfortunately, they were all killed by Lu Li. Soon, Lu Li came back to his senses. He sensed danger. He used psychic power to check his body quickly. Then, without any hesitation, he punched at the man to his left who had the centipede. Divine energy was the source of strength. Lu Li's divine energy was messed up. However, his current attack did not require godly power at all. He punched out, and all 720 acupoints in his body activated. Surging energy surged into his fist like 10,000 rivers, and then into the body of the martial artist who had released the centipede. Soul-shattering skill. Layers of energy surged into the warrior's body, which was constantly exploding. The warrior's internal organs were crushed in an instant. Lu Li's fist pierced through the warrior's chest. Then, the warrior's body exploded into pieces. The bearded bald man and the other warrior were stunned. How could Lu Li attack when his divine energy was in a mess? Moreover, he had killed one of their companions in one move. That being said, the centipede had devoured the souls of many powerful warriors. Was Lu Li's soul the same? Even if he didn't devour it, wasn't his soul injured? Once he was injured, how could he continue attacking without batting an eyelid? Buzz, the dragon soul inside Lu Li's soul, was glaring. There was nothing Lu Li could do now that the centipede had entered his body. He had to pin his hope on the dragon soul. The dragon soul didn't disappoint Lu Li. With a silver glare, the centipede was kept out of Lu Li's soul. At the same time, the silver glare enveloped the centipede. The centipede was rolling around and its body was melting quickly. Ha! The bald-bearded man swung his scimitar at Lu Li's neck again. This time, the hook on the scimitar glowed, and it was aimed at Lu Li's neck. Lu Li saw another illusion. There was a warrior swinging his saber at Lu Li's head, clenching his teeth. There were runes on Lu Li's saber as well, but not as complicated as the bald-bearded man's. When Lu Li waved his saber, he felt it was not a saber, but a mountain. Clank, clank, the bald-bearded man's scimitar cut across Lu Li's neck. However, he felt it was like cutting across cold iron. The only thing missing was some sparks. The sharp hook of the blade pierced into Lu Li's skin, but it didn't hook off Lu Li's head as easily as before. Bang! The saber with tremendous force landed on Lu Li's head. Lu Li's head only shook a bit. There was no sign of his head being smashed. Instead, the saber bounced off. Is this punk's body made of 10,000-year-old iron? Such horrifying attacks and such a strong body. Is Luli developing towards the path of the supreme immortal body? Good heavens, the supreme immortal body. For hundreds of years, there have only been a few supreme immortal bodies at the second or third heaven. Every single one of them could sweep away everything in their way. I think there is going to be a second Emperor Z. The warriors hiding in the distance were shocked. They were shocked by the attacks of the bald bearded man and the others. They were amazed by Luli's strong body. They were enjoying the wonderful fight. Boom. When Luli came back to his senses, he punched at the head of the man next to the bald bearded man. As expected, the man's head was crushed. His defense was not strong enough to withstand Luli's violent strength. The bald bearded man and the other 5 had been dominating the Omen Island for more than 10,000 years, and they had killed many people. Many people and small forces had made them grit their teeth. Little did they expect that they would be defeated by Luli this time. Only one of the 6 was left. Whoosh! Luli dashed over after he killed one man. The bald-bearded man moved fast and dodged Luli. Then, he waved his scimitar and Luli was blinded by illusions again. Clank, clank, clank. The bald-bearded man kept swinging his scimitar and hacked at Luli again and again. Every time Luli came back to his senses, the bald-bearded man would trigger the rune on the scimitar and put Luli in an illusion. The rune was strange. Average soul attacks could not affect Luli. However, every time the rune was activated, Luli would be trapped in an illusion. It was strange. The bald-bearded man's eyes glowed. The tattoo on his head glowed. He kept hacking at Luli with his scimitar. Unfortunately, apart from leaving some blood marks, his scimitar could not penetrate deep into Luli's muscles, let alone break his bones. The bald-bearded man frowned. It was hard for him to kill Luli. Luli's healing ability was too strong. The wounds that the bald-bearded man made on Luli were all healed. At this rate, he would never be able to kill Luli. Luli complained to himself. The rune on the bald-bearded man's saber was strange. Every time, Luli would be blinded by the illusion. The bald-bearded man was fast. This was not the way. Worms of the void. Luli took out the mountain and began to release more worms of the void. He did not believe that the bald-bearded man could defeat tens of thousands of worms of the void. Luli would not be able to defeat millions. Once the bald-bearded man could not defeat the worms of the void, then it would be the end of him. As he had expected, as soon as Luli released a batch of worms of the void, the bald-bearded man was taken aback. He could defeat the first batch of worms of the void, but when there were more of them, it would be troublesome. If Luli was given the chance to catch his breath, the bald-bearded man would be killed by Luli in a few moves. Whoosh! The bald-bearded man was decisive. His eyes glowed in a red glare. Then, he dashed to the distance in a red line at a speed several times faster than Luli's. Luli, you killed 5 of my brothers. I will have my revenge. One day I will tear you into pieces. Chapter 1891. Luli was ambushed out of nowhere and he didn't even know who sent them. At first, Luli wanted to capture one alive and interrogate him. However, the bald-bearded man had run away and the others were all dead. Luli couldn't get anything out of them. The bald-bearded man knew Luli's name, so he must have come prepared to kill Luli. Wait! Luli vaguely heard someone talking nearby. He spread out his psychic power and searched around. He found 7 or 8 warriors hiding in a cave at the east and in other places as well. Whoosh, 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 the 7 or 8 warriors sensed Luli's psychic power. They ran away in terror and ran to the distance. However, they were not strong, so they were not fast. As soon as they ran away, Luli had caught up and shortened the distance between them. If anyone dares to run away, I will kill him even if I have to chase him for hundreds of millions of miles. Don't doubt my determination." Lu Li's cold words sent chills down the 7 or 8 warriors. They didn't dare to run away after sensing Lu Li's speed. The 8 turned around and ran to Lu Li, all on their knees. "Lord Lu, we are just cultivating nearby. We heard the noise and came over to watch. We have no ill intentions." "Yes, young Master Lu, we are just here to have a look. Young Master, you are a magnanimous man. Don't forget about us. Young Master, please spare our lives." The 8 knelt on the ground and kowtowed to Lu Li, begging for mercy. Lu Li could tell that they were not with the bald-bearded man. He said coldly, "Shut up. I will ask you and you will answer me. If I am not satisfied, you will all die." The warriors kept quiet out of fear. Lu Li pointed to the bodies in the distance and said, "Do you know who they are?" "Yes, yes." One of them nodded and said, "They are the famous 6 Asmodeans of the Omen Island." "6 Asmodeans of the Omen?" Lu Li frowned and asked, "Tell me more." That man thought about it and said, "That bald-bearded man is famous at the Omen Island. He is called the Bald-Bearded Man. He became famous more than 10,000 years ago. He once led an army of bandits, more than 400 of them, to plunder and bully the weak. Later on, this bandit army provoked a great power and was wiped out. The bald man went missing, his fate unknown. 3,000 years ago, the bald-bearded man appeared again. This time, he only brought 60 people with him, and they also killed their way through. Their methods were very vicious, and this time, they didn't target the major powers. They only targeted rogue cultivators, and many rogue cultivators on Heavenly Devil Island had been robbed by them. But later on, Bald Beard encountered a powerful rogue cultivator. More than 60 people around him were killed, and only he escaped with his life. The bald-bearded man disappeared once again. He reappeared 30 years ago, and this time, he only brought 5 people with him. They are the 5 people that young Master killed. They were full of evil deeds. The bald man liked handsome young men the most, and the others all had their own perverted hobbies. Ordinary martial artists on the Heavenly Devil Island would tremble in fear upon hearing their names. Today, young Master Lu has displayed his prowess. If word of your heroic deeds were to spread, countless people would definitely be grateful to young Master Lu and give you a longevity plaque. All right. Lu Li didn't want to hear any more flattery. He began to ponder. It seemed that the bald-bearded man and the others had nothing to do with Tianliang Mountain. Yu Feixiang couldn't have hired them to ambush him. Yu Feixiang couldn't afford the price they demanded. If they were big shots from Tianliang Mountain, they would have taken action themselves. They wouldn't have come into contact with a notorious man like the bald-bearded man. Yen Hong. Lu Li thought about it and realized that it was very likely that the bald-bearded man and the others were hired by Yen Hong. He waved his hand and asked them to get lost. Then, he came back and put away their interspatial rings and weapons. "Let's go." Lu Li took a healing pellet and hurried back to Tianling Mountain. While running, Lu Li looked up at the sky, frowning and thinking. When he first entered the second heaven, Uncle Li once said that he couldn't fly up in the sky and couldn't use teleportation. Otherwise, he would be killed by the space chaos wave in the sky. When the bald-bearded man ran away, Lu Li thought that if he could teleport, he might be able to catch up with him. Lu Li thought of something. He wasn't good at fighting before, but now, his defense was comparable to that of a 3-tribulation heaven god, right? Theoretically speaking, he should be able to resist the space chaos wave. Did that mean that he could teleport? If he could, then he would have another way to escape. Once things went wrong, he could run away at once instead of fighting to the death like before. Buzzing. Lu Li let Uncle Li out. As soon as he came out, Uncle Li looked around nervously and asked, "Master, how is it? Have you heard of the bald-bearded man?" Lu Li asked. Uncle Li's eyelids twitched. He shouted in surprise, The bald-bearded man? The one who ambushed you was the bald-bearded man? Where is he now? The bald-bearded man ran away. I killed the 5 people around him, Luli answered emotionlessly. Hiss, hiss, Uncle Lee gasped. He looked at Luli as if he was a monster. It took him a long time to come back to his senses. Master, I think you are stronger than the peak of the second tribulation heaven god now. Luli didn't mind. Instead, he asked another question. Can I teleport now? Well, Uncle Lee was not so sure. He thought about it and said, You'd better not take the risk. After all, chaotic ripples in space are universally acknowledged to be horrifying at the second realm. If you cannot stand it, you will be killed. Or you may be sucked into a chaotic hole and taken to a strange world or a secret area. You may never come out again. All right. Luli nodded. Uncle Lee had been living at the Hall of Black Flames for many years. He was knowledgeable. His words would not be unfounded. Unless it was absolutely necessary, Luli and Uncle Lee should not teleport. It took Luli and Uncle Lee a day to get back to the Cloud Mountain. Luli told Uncle Lee to stay at the Green Moon Peak while he went directly to the Cloud Mountain. The leader of the guards showed him to the peak. Luli found Patriarch Chen and they went down the mountain. Luli couldn't wait to see how many worms of the void there were on the second floor of the Tower of Monsters. The 2 of them arrived at the foot of the Yao Ceiling Pagoda. The commander opened the Yao Ceiling Pagoda, and the 2 of them flew through the gate. As soon as they went in, they were startled. There were so many worms of the void that they couldn't see the end of them. Patriarch Qin used psychic power to check and found that everywhere he could see were worms of the void. There must be at least hundreds of billions of them. What? Luli looked to the left in surprise. One of the worms of the void had a different color. It had changed from golden to dark gold. Did it evolve again? Luli trembled. He was overjoyed. He controlled that dark gold worm of the void to fly away. In an instant, that worm of the void flew for hundreds of miles, much faster than the golden worm of the void. Okay. Chapter 1892. The worms of the void had devoured many demons in the past, but they never evolved. They only split. At the Mountain of Clouds, the worms of the void had evolved twice after consuming the flesh of 2 kinds of demons. Luli was overjoyed. The worms of the void were not part of his abilities, and they belonged to the deviant path. That being said, there were not so many rules in the world. As long as the worms of the void could kill enemies and the worms of the void were not too wicked or cruel, others would not say anything. For example, if someone used poison, a powerful poison skill could kill millions in an instant. If the poison could be used to the acme of perfection, such as the Green Valley Mountain Man, he would be regarded as a powerful warrior. Of course, if the Green Valley Mountain Man used poison to kill innocent creatures or slaughtered innocent people in an entire city, then both humans and gods would be outraged. Similarly, when Lu Li's worms of the void killed demons in the divinity, people would applaud. However, if he devoured innocent civilians and allowed the worms of the void to multiply, then the worms of the void would be regarded as deviant. Come here. Luli asked the mother to summon all the worms of the void on the second floor of the Tower of Monsters. He wanted to see how many had evolved. As soon as the mother gave the order, countless worms of the void swarmed over. Fortunately, Luli had given the order so the worms of the void did not attack Patriarch Qin. Luli took out the mountain and let out the average worms of the void. Then, he put away the golden one. The mountain was spacious but not enough to accommodate so many worms of the void. There were over 100 billion golden worms of the void. It was pointless to keep the regular ones. When all the worms of the void came back, there were more than 150 billion. What surprised Luli was, there was only one dark golden worm of the void. So many worms of the void had split and only one had evolved. Patriarch Chen, please destroy those worms. Luli pointed to the dense group of regular worms of the void to his left, and told the mother to materialize. Patriarch Chen could tell that the two types of worms of the void were different. He did not ask any questions. He took out a black stove and raised it. A stream of cyan flame flew out and the worms of the void were incinerated. Whoosh! After Elder Chen killed all the void worms, he flew into the distance and came back after an hour. He curled his lips and said, "These worms of yours are really powerful. All the dream demon beasts were eaten by them. Even that dream demon king was killed." Ugh! Luli was slightly startled. He thought of that dark gold void worm. It was very likely that it had devoured Dream Demon King's blood essence to evolve. A single Dream Demon King's blood essence could only allow a single void worm to evolve. How difficult would it be for this dark gold void worm to split apart? Elder Chen, please take me to the small world where the Dream Demon Beast is. Luli clasped his fists and said, "I want this dark golden worm of void to divide. If it can be divided into tens of billions, my abilities will be greatly enhanced." A huge improvement? Elder Chen furrowed his sparse brows and asked, "Can that dark golden bug kill a three-tribulation deity?" Lu Li's comprehensive abilities were at the peak of the second tribulation. Any further improvement and he would be comparable to a three-tribulation deity. That was why Patriarch Chen asked. Luli thought about it and said, "It is possible. At least, it will cause some trouble for the three-tribulation deity." Okay. Patriarch Chen seemed to know about Fairy Tianyun. He knew that she was going to let Luli participate in the contest of geniuses. Therefore, Patriarch Chen was happy to help Luli if he could improve his abilities. What was more, Luli could have an immortal's body. If Patriarch Chen could do him a favor now, he could be rewarded handsomely in the future. Patriarch Chen crushed a jade talisman and a portal appeared. He took Luli out and went to the Cloud Mountain. After reaching the peak of the mountain, the two of them entered a castle. There was an altar inside. Elder Chen explained, "You can teleport to that small world from here. Don't worry, there will be restrictions protecting you after you enter. There won't be any danger." Patriarch Chen activated the inhibition formations. Luli felt he had been teleported for a long time before the world in front of him brightened up. They were in a plain. A semicircular shield was placed on the grassland. There were 3 people sitting here with their legs crossed. They saluted Patriarch Chen at once. Around them was a dense forest. Luli used psychic power to check. There was nothing in the forest. It was eerily quiet. He looked into the distance. The forest was boundless. It must be the same kind of terrain. "This is the world of dream beasts," Patriarch Chen explained. "The forest is full of dream beasts. They just don't show up usually. Let the worms out and let them eat on their own. But don't let out too many. Don't wipe out the dream beasts." "I won't." Luli waved his hand and said, "I will only let out one. Let's not go back yet. Let's stay here for a while." Buzzing, Luli let out the dark golden worm of void. The worm of void became incorporeal and flew into the forest directly through the inhibition formations. As soon as the worm of void went in, it alarmed the dream beast. One by one, the dream beasts came out. Luli told the mother worm to let the dark golden worm of void eat to its heart's content. The dark golden worm of the void rushed into the body of a dream monster. What happened next shocked Luli, Patriarch Chen, and the 3 guards. The worm of the void rushed into the body of a dream monster. In the time for one breath, the dream monster turned into a mist of blood. Not even a single hair or bone was left. The time for one breath, Patriarch Chen focused on the dark golden worm of void with psychic power. His expressions changed. He saw how the worm of void ate the dream beasts. It was so fast that it was beyond imagination. Bang bang bang. One by one, the dream beasts turned into mist of blood. The worm of void floated around like lightning. As soon as the worm of void entered the body of the dream beasts would turn into a mist of blood. Powerful. Elder Chen was speechless, and the faces of the three guarding martial artists turned pale. They thought that if these insects entered their bodies, would they turn into a bloody mist like the dream demon beast? 1, 10, 100. The worm of void was alive. Therefore, it attracted the dream beast. As more and more dream beasts were eaten, Lu Li's frown deepened. After 500 dream beasts were eaten, the dark golden worm of void showed no signs of splitting. Lu Li sighed. It seemed that the average dream beasts were of no use to the worm of void. The worm of void would not split even after eating 10,000. It was the same with the evolution of the worm of void. When the worm of void devoured the bodies of demons, it would not evolve no matter how many it ate. The blood of demons could not meet the requirement for the worm of void to evolve. Similarly, the blood of the dream beasts could not meet the requirement for the worm of void to split. Otherwise, the worm of void would have split long ago. Lu Li, on the other hand, was not in a hurry. He continued to observe. 2 hours later, the worm of void had eaten more than 2,000 dream warlocks, and the worm of void was still intact. Lu Li flew it back. Hiss, hiss. Chapter 1893. There were not many demon lords of dreams. They needed to evolve as well. Usually, there would only be one demon lord among hundreds of thousands of them. Warriors would go to the second level of the Tower of Monsters. Not many could make it. That being said, it was not necessary to kill a demon lord. That being said, demon lords of dreams were still being killed. Therefore, there were not many demon lords of dreams in this small world. Wait here. I will go and have a look. Elder Chen thought for a moment, then rushed out of the barrier and floated into the distance. Lu Li did not know how long Patriarch Chen was going, so he asked the three, "How big is this small world?" "Very big." One of them answered with respect, "If we were to fly, it would take us more than half a month to go around." "Oh, I see." They were all at the peak of the second tribulation. They would need more than half a month. Patriarch Chen would need at least 7 or 8 days. Lu Li thought about it and sat down, cultivating and waiting. As he expected, Patriarch Chen came back after 7 days. He frowned. As soon as he came, he sighed and said, "Lu Li, there are not many demon lords of dreams. I have checked. There are only more than 20. We need at least a dozen. If you want to devour them, I can only give you 10. 10 demon lords of dreams?" Lu Li was delighted. 10 demon lords of dreams should be enough to produce many dark golden worms of the void. Thousands of worms of the void could increase Lu Li's abilities by leaps and bounds. Lu Li asked Patriarch Chen to take him to the demon lords of dreams. Patriarch Chen did not go out at once. He took out a strange yellow jade talisman and handed it to Lu Li. "Take this and the average demon lords of dreams will not attack you." Lu Li looked at the yellow jade talisman. There were strange patterns on it, similar to the ones on the bald bearded man's machete. Lu Li asked with curiosity, "What is the story of these patterns?" "These are the divine runes that Fairy Tian Yun personally carved," Elder Chen said with a smile. "These divine runes have the ability to suppress demons. They are the bane of demons." "What a mystical divine rune!" Lu Li was surprised. He followed Patriarch Chen out. With the yellow jade talisman in his hand, the beasts of dreams didn't dare to get close. Lu Li was more and more surprised. While running with Patriarch Chen, Lu Li asked, "Patriarch Chen, what are those divine patterns? Why does it have such a magical ability?" "Heavenly Tao Divine Rune," Elder Chen explained. "In this vast world of ours, there are many mystical places. The heavens will naturally form some heavenly Tao divine imprints, and these heavenly Tao divine imprints possess all sorts of mystical abilities. There are some experts who are able to comprehend divine inscriptions and inscribe them for their own use. At the same time, the divine inscriptions also contain the Tao of heaven and earth. By comprehending the Tao and Tao, one would be able to form all sorts of powerful innate technique. The greatest use of divine imprints is to inscribe weapons. Many experts have powerful divine imprints inscribed on their weapons. Some of them will spend tens of thousands of years just to refine relic weapons. There are relic armors. If powerful divine imprints can be inscribed on them, the armor's defense will be enhanced. Of course, there are still too few people who know how to inscribe divine patterns. Those are all absolute experts. According to our fairy, she only knows a little about it. Those third heaven supreme thearchs are the true experts. Some of them have even refined their weapons to the extreme and refined them into supreme Tharch weapons. Even if they don't do anything, an average 1 tribulation divine immortal can kill a 3 tribulation divine immortal with their weapons. What? Luli was shocked. One weapon could kill a 3 tribulation divine immortal? Wasn't this emperor weapon a little too domineering? This was unbelievable. The heavenly Tao divine rune was too abstruse. You know Emperor Z, right? Patriarch Chen complained that Luli was too slow. While they were running, Patriarch Chen said, back in the days, he cultivated the Overlord's divine body. He dominated the third heaven and dominated the world. Unfortunately, he offended Emperor Yang and was killed by Emperor Yang's sovereign weapon. Even his head was cut off. Think about it. He could kill a supreme immortal body. You can see how powerful sovereign weapons are. Luli trembled. He had known about Emperor Z for a long time. Emperor Z said in person that he was killed by Emperor Yang. Back then, Luli was surprised. Didn't Emperor Z say that Luli had the strongest physical body under the third heaven? Why was his head cut off? Luli didn't know that it was Emperor Yang who used a sovereign weapon to kill him. There must be a lot of warriors at the third heaven. Luli exclaimed. He asked, Patriarch Qin, how many tribulation divine immortals like Emperor Yang have reached? I don't know. I only know that he is ridiculously powerful. Patriarch Qin shook his head and said, the third heaven is the center of the world. There are more than just powerful warriors there. There are as many as the hairs on a cow. Warriors at the fourth and fifth heaven are all gathered at the third heaven. In other words, almost all the powerful warriors in the world are at the third heaven. Emperor Yang used to be a warrior at the fifth heaven. He became an emperor after he returned to the third heaven. Why? Luli didn't understand. Why would a warrior at the fifth heaven come to the third heaven instead of staying at the fifth heaven? I don't know the details. It seems that the fourth and fifth heaven collapsed. Therefore, all the powerful warriors in the world are gathered at the third heaven. Well, the third heaven is large as well, tens of thousands of times larger than the second heaven. The devil once went to the third heaven, but he came back in the end. It is too dangerous there. There are as many tribulation divine immortals as there are hairs on a cow. The third heaven is the center of the world. Too many powerful warriors are gathered there. One careless move and you will be turned into ashes. Patriarch Chen exclaimed. His eyes became misty as he sighed. Hundreds of thousands of years ago, my biggest dream was to explore the third heaven. But now, I don't have the courage to go. The third heaven has many super forces, super sects and super families. There are many ancient lands there. In some places, the remains of ancient emperors are buried and there are sovereign weapons. The third heaven has many sacred grounds, sacred fruits that can steal the fortune of heaven and earth, and many mysterious things. It is a paradise for warriors and also hell for warriors. Luli was shocked. The fourth heaven and the fifth heaven collapsed? What was going on? Why did it collapse? The third heaven became the center of the world? Was there only the fifth heaven in the world? A paradise for warriors and a hell for warriors. Countless super forces, countless super sects? Countless super families? It seemed that Lu Ling's family was at the third heaven. When I suppress the Hall of Black Flame, I must explore the third heaven and get my sister back. Lu Li nodded. His expressions became more determined. He didn't ask more about the third heaven. He was still too weak. He couldn't even survive in the second heaven. To think about the third heaven now was like looking at the sky from the bottom of a well. He had to cultivate and suppress the Hall of Black Flame first. There is a demon of dreams up ahead. Patriarch Chen's voice woke Lu Li up. He checked with psychic power and found a demon that was larger than the average demon of dreams. Okay. Chapter 1894. The Dream Devil King was indeed very powerful. An ordinary void worm would be able to devour it in an instant. However, this Dream Devil King had taken the time it took for an incense stick to burn before it was completely devoured. But there was not much suspense in the process. The dark golden worm of void was too strong. As soon as it entered the body of the Dream Demon, it began to gnaw away. The Dream Demon King was helpless against it, and could only continuously roll around nearby, destroying a part of the forest. Patriarch Chen and Lu Li stared at the worm of void with their eyes wide open. Both of them were stunned. After devouring a dream demon, the dark golden worm of void showed no signs of splitting. Lu Li had thought that after eating 10 dream demon, there would be thousands of dark golden worms of void, which would be of great help to him. Little did he expect that the worm of void didn't split even once. Is this the final evolution of the worm of void? It cannot split, so the golden worm of void can only evolve like this? Lu Li's eyes flickered. Patriarch Chen asked with concern, Lu Li, are we going to go on? Let's try again. Lu Li cupped his fist. One dark golden worm of void was too little. If it were killed by a powerful warrior, then he wouldn't have a chance to split again. He would have to split several times. He left one as the mother worm so that he could find a chance to split later. Patriarch Chen carried Lu Li on his way. After 6 hours, they found another Dream Demon King. After much consideration, Lu Li decided to let the dark golden worm of void go again. If it couldn't split again, then he would have to find a way to evolve the golden worm of void. The dark golden worm of void whooshed over and ate the dream demon in the time for one incense stick to burn. This time, before the dream demon was finished, the dark golden worm of void glowed and began to split. Good! Lu Li was delighted. If the worm of void could split once, then he could find a way to do it many times and eventually form a huge swarm of worms of void. Patriarch Chen was relieved. If the worm of void could not split again after the death of 2 dream demon, then it would be a great loss. The dark golden worm of void split at a moderate speed. After half a day there were 2 worm of void. Lu Li asked the 2 worms of the void to consume the remaining bones of Dream Demon King. Then, he begged Patriarch Chen to take him to find Dream Demon King. After more than 10 days, Patriarch Chen showed Lu Li around the small world. They found 10 Lords of Dreams and devoured all of them. The Void Worm had split 3 times, turning from 1 to 8. There were 10 Dream Demon Kings, and each of their bodies contained a terrifying amount of energy. However, only 7 of them were split. This was a far cry from what Lu Li had envisioned. He looked at Patriarch Chen with dissatisfaction, but the latter shook his head and said, "No more. Besides, there are only a dozen or so Dream Demon Kings. Even if they split a few more times, it would only be a dozen or so bugs. Wouldn't it be the same?" Lu Li thought it made sense. He had to let it go. He thought for a moment and asked, "Doesn't the Yao Ceiling Pagoda have 5 floors? What about the demons in the other levels? Wouldn't it be stronger? Why don't we give some to the Void Worm to devour?" "No." Patriarch Chen shook his head and said, The demons in the other levels are strong, but they are few in number. It took a lot of effort to capture them. They are strictly forbidden to kill the warriors in the later levels. They can only be repelled. Oh, Luli sighed with disappointment. Unwilling to give up, he asked, then, Patriarch Chen, do you know where there are powerful demons nearby? Should we go and find them? There is a place. Patriarch Chen grinned and said, thousands of miles to the west of Wuya Island, there is a demon sealed. If you want to go, you can go by yourself. I don't have the courage to go. That demon was sealed by the Demon King and island owner Wuya themselves. Luli rolled his eyes. Patriarch Chen took him to the teleportation formation. Noticing Luli's sadness, Patriarch Chen comforted him. If you have the chance, you can go to the sea and have a look. Maybe there are powerful beasts of primordial chaos that can split your worms. Sure. Luli nodded, but he didn't have the courage to go to the sea. He was not powerful enough, and Yen Hong was a three-tribulation heaven god. Luli would be killed by Yen Hong if he went out. They went back to the teleportation altar and teleported to the peak of Mount Cloud. Patriarch Chen took out some elixirs for Luli and left. Those elixirs were top-level ones to nurture the soul, and some to assist in divine energy cultivation. Fairy Tianyun must have asked Patriarch Chen to give them to Luli. I need to rest for a few days. Luli decided to rest for a couple of days and then go to the Demon King Mountain to study the sword intent. If he had time, he could go to the Stone of Demon King to see if he could learn the marks left by the Demon King. Luli took a bath, changed his clothes and had a good sleep. Then, he called for a banquet and drank by himself. He had just finished 2 goblets when he smelled a fragrance. Lady E was here again. Luli looked up at her and couldn't help but tease. Lady E, are you born in the year of the dog? Why are you so punctual every time? Lady E snorted. She sat in front of Luli and said, I am here to visit you with good intentions. How dare you mock me? Why don't you get caught by that bald man? Luli felt chills running down his spine at the thought of that freaky old rabbit. He snorted and said, if it were not for the fact that I am not fast enough, I would have killed that freaky old man. You are bluffing. Lady E picked up her goblet, took a sip and said, the bald man has been at the Omen Island for many years. Many people hate his gut. Many forces are coming after him, but he is still alive and well. He is proficient in 5 or 6 kinds of escaping skills, and he has a flying artifact with divine pattern carved on it. He is so good at escaping. Do you think you can kill him? It will be more difficult than you think. He has such an artifact? Luli said to himself that it was a pity. If he could kill the bald man, then the flying artifact would be his. But on second thought, Luli's artifact was useless, and he could not catch up with the bald man. It was not likely that Luli could kill the bald man. Seeing that Luli was silent and upset, Lady E smiled, raised her goblet and said, okay. We are all surprised that you can kill the 5 people with the bald man. Luli, congratulations on your progress. Here, I salute you. Luli forced a smile and toasted with Lady E. All of a sudden, Lady E said mysteriously, Luli, I heard that your insects have evolved again? Do you need powerful demons to split up? How do you know? Luli looked at Lady E in surprise. He was even more curious about her identity. Patriarch Chen wouldn't say anything. Did the one guarding the small world of Dream Warcraft tell her? Ha ha. Lady E stuck out her chest and said, what don't I know? As long as I want to know something, nothing is too difficult for me. Is that so? Luli thought of something and said, then go and find out for me if there is a person called Lu Ling in the Dragon Rebel Valley. Dragon Rebel Valley, Lady E rolled her eyes and said, that is a super force at the 3rd heaven. Where do you want me to find out? Well, Luli, you are related to a young lady at the Dragon Rebel Valley? Luli didn't want to talk about this. He took a sip and said, Lady E, you mentioned powerful demons? Do you know there are powerful demons nearby? Of course. Lady E raised her head proudly and said, there is a place in the Omen Island that has powerful demons. Do you want to go or not? If you do, give me some divine origin gold, and I will take you there. Okay. Chapter 1895. Divine origin gold meant nothing to Luli at the moment. The powerful demon didn't split the dark golden worms of void. If the number of dark golden worms of void could reach tens of thousands or even hundreds of millions, Luli would have the courage to fight against a three-tribulation heaven god. If the sneak attack was successful, he could even kill a three-tribulation heaven god. Luli acquired some divine origin gold some time ago. He killed many warriors and looted many interspatial rings. There was some divine origin gold in them. Lady E waved her hand and said, calm down. I will tell you about the demon first. You can decide if you want to go or not. Okay. Luli sat down. He was not in the mood to eat anymore. He stared at Lady E without blinking. She took out a map, pointed to a huge mountain and said, this is the Tianliang Mountain. Thousands of miles to the west, there is a dangerous place called Demon Mountain. It used to be the residence of a powerful demon. This old fiendish demon has cultivated to become a spirit. He has a spiritual wisdom no weaker than humans, and his combat strength is no weaker than the peak of the third tribulation. Previously, Heavenly Devil Island was called that not because of the great Devil King, but because of this old fiendish demon. There's such a thing? This was the first time Luli had heard of this. He thought the Omen Island was named because of the demon lord. He didn't know that it was because of this demon. Luli continued his speculation and asked, the demon lord killed the demon? That is how he took over the Omen Island? The demon lord is so powerful. He can even kill a demon at the peak of three tribulation. You are half right. Lady E explained. The demon was attacked by powerful warriors when he was out. He was badly injured and returned to the Omen Island. That was how he was killed by the demon lord. Back then, the demon lord was only a powerful three-tribulation heaven god. As for how powerful he is now, I don't know. Luli nodded and said, then what happened? The demon died. The demon mountain was sealed by the demon lord and all the demons in there were killed. Lady E said with fervor and assurance. She knew the past like the back of her hand, but in the recent 100 years, the seal over there has been weakening. Some more demons are born in the demon mountain. Maybe it is because of the demon's chi and energy, or maybe it is because of the demon's arrangement. The demons are multiplying fast. The great demon king sent people to investigate, but after confirming that there weren't any powerful demons, he ignored them. The great demon king said that no one is allowed to get close to the demon king. Otherwise, they will be responsible for their own lives. However, there were still many who entered the demon king mountain. This was because the old devil had left behind many treasures, and there were many places in the demon mountain that had strange divine runes. In addition, they could fight with demons there to gain experience, so it attracted a lot of people to Demon Mountain. Many people have died in there over the years. Of course, some people have obtained precious treasures or learned some evil art. Sorcery? Luli raised his eyebrows and couldn't help but ask, did they learn their sorcery in there? That's not right. Baldy who said he was in an ancient acupoint in the third heaven. Miss E smiled faintly, causing the room to brighten up a bit. Her face revealed a mocking smile, causing her temperament to change greatly, from a gentle goddess to a cold and arrogant queen. She sneered. With this little bit of fighting strength, he can go to the third heaven? Exploring a historical site of the third heaven? He must have learned his sorcery in the Demon King Mountain. He was hunted many times and in the end, he had to hide in the Demon Mountain. No wonder. Luli understood. Baldy, who was hunted many times and disappeared for many years. He must have been cultivating in the Demon Mountain. He and the other 5 learned their sorcery from the Demon Mountain. What I want to tell you is this. Miss E put on a solemn expression. The Demon Mountain is dangerous. Not only are there inhibition formations, but there are also mysterious dojos with divine runes and ferocious demons. If you are sure you want to go, you must be prepared to die in there. Luli was not afraid of inhibition formations. Blood Fairy was good at breaking inhibition formations. The divine rune dojos were not a problem. As long as he was careful, he could survive. Powerful demons? There shouldn't be any powerful ones there, or else the great demon king would have killed them. Let's go. Luli stood up and said with determination, nothing ventured, nothing gained. I will go to the Demon King Mountain. I heard that, Missy said with a smile. You fought with Yu Feixiang at the Jile Mountain? If Yu Feixiang knows you are at the Demon Mountain, he will send someone to assassinate you. I suggest you don't go. Yu Feixiang. Luli frowned. The Demon Mountain was near the Tianliang Mountain. If he went there, it would be easy for the Tianliang Mountain to find him. Luli thought to himself. The dark golden worms of the void were important to him. They would be a great help to him. To breed a large number of dark golden worms of the void, he would have to go to the sea to find powerful beasts of primordial chaos. Otherwise, there was no way. Let's go. Luli made up his mind. The map showed that the Demon Mountain was large. He could take a detour and go to the Demon Mountain from another direction. If he could grow hundreds of millions of dark golden worms of the void, or he could devour powerful demons and the worms of the void could evolve again. He could kill several patriarchs from the Tianliang Mountain. You are brave. Miss E stood up with a smile. She was about to leave when she thought of something and said, Patriarch Chen gave you a jade talisman? Low-level demons won't dare to get close to you with that jade talisman. Once any demon attacks you, it will be a powerful one. Also, it is said that a demon king has appeared at the Demon Mountain. He is much weaker than the old demon, but you will be doomed if you run into him. Okay, good luck. I am leaving. Seeing that Miss E was about to leave, Luli came back to his senses and said, You don't want divine origin gold anymore? I would have forgotten about it if you didn't mention it. Miss E came back. She reached out her beautiful hand and said, I have brought you such important information. Give me all your divine origin gold. All Luli was speechless. When he killed Gong Zizai and his gang, he obtained more than 1,000 interspatial rings. The divine origin gold in those interspatial rings amounted to several thousand. Lady Yi's information was too valuable. You just said that you will give me as much divine origin gold as I want. Are you going to go back on your word? Lady Yi pouted. Her temperament changed again. She looked like a girl next door who had been wronged. Luli scratched his head and said, I said that you will take me to the demons. Now you are asking me to go by myself. Actually, I am doing this for your own good. Lady Yi's expressions changed again. She became a caring sister. She said, If you die at the Demon Mountain, the divine origin gold will go to others. If you give it to me, I will lend it to you in the future when you are in trouble. You are a man. Don't go back on your words. Okay, I will give it all to you. Luli took out an interspatial ring and put all the divine origin gold in it. He said helplessly, Don't curse me to die. If I really die, I will become a ghost and crawl into your bed at night to sleep with you. PFF. Chapter 1896. Once again, Luli and Uncle Li came to the Mountain of Demon. Luli stopped halfway up the mountain and sat on a boulder to study while Uncle Li went to the Stone of Demon at the peak. Luli was not in a hurry to go to the Mountain of Demon. He had been stuck with no progress on the fundamental principle of sword intent. Luli wanted to stay here for a while and then go to the Mountain of Demon when he made some progress. Although his physical body was very strong now, and the power of his fists was now his strongest combat power, it was still not enough. That being said, Luli never forgot to cultivate the fundamental principle. The sword intent of sword intent was powerful. If he could integrate it into the Slayer's Ghost Cut, the Slayer's Ghost Cut would be more powerful. It could even kill an average heaven god of 3 tribulations. Sitting on the protruding rock with his legs crossed, Luli felt something was different. That strange feeling came to his mind again. He sensed endless killing intent. It was as if the needle-like leaves were swords coming at him from all sides, trying to turn him into a beehive. The boulder was a sword as well, emitting strong killing intent. Luli could learn much faster here. That kind of feeling could help him figure out many things that he could not figure out. Luli entered the dreamland and forgot about everything outside. He immersed himself in that strange feeling and studied the sword intent of sword intent of sword intent. Uncle Li didn't come down. Fairy Tianyun gave him 3 chances to enter the Stone of Demon, and he could stay for 3 days each time. Since he was here, Uncle Li would not go down easily. Otherwise, it would be a waste of a chance. 3 days passed quickly and Uncle Li still did not go down the mountain. After 3 days of comprehension, he finally had some enlightenment. He was prepared to use the remaining 6 days to completely comprehend what he had comprehended. Luli didn't know the time when Uncle Li was in closed-door cultivation. He had been waiting for Uncle Li to leave, so he didn't pay much attention to what was going on outside. The 9 days were worthwhile for Uncle Li. He had learned a fundamental principle in the Stone of Demon King. Even though he was just getting started, he would be able to master it sooner or later as long as he kept on studying. Time was up. Uncle Li walked down the mountain and looked at Luli. He wanted to wake Luli up so they could go back together, but he stopped after one look. Luli sat by the tree with his legs crossed. His body was frozen. He had become an icicle. That was not the point. The point was that Luli was releasing endless killing intent. It felt like Luli was not an icicle, but an unsheathed ice sword. He looked over and felt Luli had become one with Tushur and the small tree. He didn't dare to disturb Luli anymore. He knew that this must be a critical period for his cultivation. If he alarmed Luli now, all his previous efforts would be in vain. He hurried down the mountain. Luli could cultivate at the Demon King Mountain at will. He could not compete with him. On the way, he curled his lips. Luli was a freak. He had learned another powerful fundamental principle. Comparisons were odious. Master must have some great treasures on him. Could it be a demon soul of the 7th grade or above? Uncle Li was astonished. A cultivator who ascended from the mortal world had such a horrifying cultivation speed. This did not make sense. Luli thought of the dragon soul, a demonic soul above the 7th rank. It might have some mysterious ability that could help Luli make rapid progress. Uncle Li didn't want to go back by himself. He sat at the foot of the mountain, waiting for Luli to come down. Those warriors thought Uncle Li was Luli's uncle, so they didn't make things difficult for him. Luli was valued by Fairy Tianyun. They wouldn't offend him over something so trivial. Uncle Li happened to be studying the fundamental principle in the Demon King Stone. There were warriors around, so it was safe to cultivate here. Uncle Li sat in closed-door cultivation, waiting for Luli to come down. This wait lasted for 4 whole months. Whoosh! A man rushed down from the mountain. Luli's face was glowing with excitement. Uncle Li and Luli had a spiritual connection. Feeling Luli's approach, Uncle Li opened his eyes. Seeing that Luli was glowing, Uncle Li moved closer and asked in a low voice, "Have you mastered it?" Luli shook his head and said, "I still have a long way to go, but I have made a breakthrough. This fundamental principle is powerful." Let's go back to the Cloud Mountain first. There were some warriors here, so Luli didn't say much. He took Uncle Lee with him and ran back to the Cloud Mountain. On the way, he didn't say much. He was in deep thought, thinking about the sword move of Frost. After 4 months of closed-door cultivation, Luli had learned the basics of the sword move of Frost. This was an offensive fundamental principle. Frost would spread out and freeze the enemies. The main attack was sword move. By then, Luli could release endless sword moves to attack continuously and pierce through the enemy's souls. That was right. The sword move of Frost was a soul attack, and its main attack was the soul. The reason why Luli's progress was slow was that he had taken the wrong path. He thought that the sword move of Frost was a physical attack. He didn't know that this fundamental principle was a soul attack, a powerful one at that. Luli could have kept cultivating. In half a year at most, he would have mastered the fundamental principle. But Luli chose to stop. He didn't rush into it. He needed to figure out a question. Was the sword move of Frost suitable to be integrated into the Slayer's Ghost Cut? The Slayer's Ghost Cut combined the Slayer's fundamental principle and the Ghost King's Cut. Both were physical attack. This sword move of Frost was a soul attack. It was completely different from the previous 2 attacks. Could it be integrated perfectly? If it could, the power would be enhanced. The Slayer's Ghost Cut was based on Luli's speculation. With every additional turn, the pressure in heaven and earth would be increased and the attack would be more powerful. If the sword move of Frost could be integrated, the attack would be more varied. Just like the soul-shattering skill, the soul and physical attacks could be carried out at the same time, making it harder for the enemies to defend. What Luli needed to figure out was the point of integration. Without the point of integration, it would be difficult. Therefore, Luli wasn't in a hurry. It was like 2 hemp ropes. If they were entangled, they would not be secure. If the ropes could be separated and the threads inside could be integrated first, it would be more stable. Outside the mountain of clouds, Luli didn't go in. He waved his hand and said, "Uncle Lee, go back and cultivate. I need to go out for a bit." Uncle Lee asked in surprise, "Master, where are you going?" "Don't worry about it. Just cultivate at the Green Moon Peak." Luli waved his hand and left. He didn't want to go back to the mountain of clouds in case his whereabouts were exposed. If the outside world knew that he was going to the mountain of demons, it could be spread to the Tianliang mountain by someone with ulterior motives. In that case, Yu Feixiang would send someone to kill him. Buzzing. Luli took out an armor. It was only a supreme relic, but it had a helmet that could cover him up. His physical body was so strong that the supreme relic was of no use to him. That being said, this armor could better conceal his identity and his whereabouts would not be exposed. The dark golden worm of void was horrifying. This was one of Luli's trump cards. Therefore, in order to make the dark golden worm of void more, he must go to the mountain of demons. Chapter 1897. The Demon Mountain was famous on the Omen Island. But for most people, it was a dangerous place. Not many would come here. What kind of people came to the Omen Island? They were those who couldn't make a living in the outside world, or those who were wicked. They came here to kill and loot. There were also those who cultivated sorcery. Therefore, some people were very interested in the Demon Mountain. Some even stayed here all year round to cultivate the sorcery left by the old demon. The Demon Mountain was not just one mountain, but a huge mountain range with thousands of mountains. The terrain was complicated and the atmosphere was gloomy. Luli could feel the chill even before he got close. It took Luli more than 2 months to get here. He took a long detour just to go around the Tianliang mountain. It was not a peaceful journey. He ran into many bandits. Many of them wanted to rob him when they saw he was alone and he was only a one tribulation heaven god. But they were all killed by him. Only once did he run into an old demon. That demon was strange and fast. He chased after him for half a month. In the end, Luli released 3 dark gold worms of the void to scare the demon away. Even though he ran into an old demon, he was more determined to come to the demon mountain. That demon must be a 3-tribulation heaven god, but he was scared away by the dark gold worms of the void. It meant that the dark gold worms of the void were powerful. Luli must have enough worms of the void. 3 were taken away by the old devil, and now he only had 5 dark gold void worms left. Arriving at the east side of the demon mountain, Luli looked at the towering mountains and sensed the gloomy atmosphere. He became very serious. There were many demons in this place, and there were also many people who cultivated evil art. He might even die in there. Go! There was no turning back. Luli took some energy pellets and went into the mountains in a low-key manner. However, 30 miles into the mountains, Luli found there was dark fog everywhere. The dark fog not only blocked his sight but also his psychic power. Luli slowed down even more. He looked around, fearing that a horrifying demon would come out and tear him apart. He had the jade talisman made by Fairy Tianyun in his hand. There were powerful divine patterns on it that could suppress regular demons. There was no danger on the periphery. Luli didn't sense any signs of life. He held his breath, afraid to breathe in the black fog for fear that he would be poisoned somehow. 100 miles, 200 miles. Ahead of them was a stone forest. Luli stopped outside the stone forest because he sensed something strange. He saw some stone peaks with divine patterns on them. Woo woo, a gust of chilly wind blew over. The surrounding stone peaks were shaking like trees. Luli was on high alert because he sensed the chi and energy of demons. If it were regular warriors, Luli wouldn't be afraid. But demons were strange creatures. They had unimaginably strange and evil skills. One careless move and he would fall into their trap. Whoosh whoosh, the black wind came. Luli glanced over and his expressions changed. There were many crows flying in the black wind. This crow looked no different from an ordinary crow, but it had 4 legs and black flames around its body. The flames caused the surrounding space to slightly curl up. Whoosh whoosh whoosh, hundreds of crows flew over and surrounded Luli. The temperature rose immediately. Luli could feel the scorching heat even though he was more than 1,000 feet away. But the crows didn't dare to attack. Luli held up the jade talisman in his hand and the crows retreated in fright. Luli was a bit relieved. Those demons must be average ones or else they wouldn't be afraid of Fairy Tianyun's jade talisman. Luli sent out some golden worms of the void toward the crows. He wanted to see if the golden worms of the void could devour the crows. Soon, he was surprised. As soon as the golden worms of the void approached the crows, the black flames around the crows grew stronger. The worms of the void began to burn. In a moment, they were all gone. The worms of the void are intangible, Luli exclaimed. The flames could even burn intangible bodies. Demons were strange. The flames were not to be underestimated. Let's see. Luli sent out a dark golden worm of the void. His heart was in his mouth. If the dark golden worm of the void was burned, he would be heartbroken. The dark golden worm of the void was fast. It dashed out in an instant and dashed into a crow. Luli was delighted. The flames of the crows could not burn the dark golden worm of the void. Bang! That crow was devoured and turned into a cloud of blood mist. The black flames died out. However, the dark golden worm of the void did not split up, which disappointed Luli. Keep devouring. Luli ordered the dark golden worm of the void. The dark golden worm of the void kept flashing around, piercing into the crows. Every time for one breath, it would devour a crow. It was a valiant move. There were hundreds of crows nearby. Soon, more than half of them were devoured. The rest did not run away. Clearly, they were not intelligent. No more crows flew out from the stone forest. Luli was disappointed because the worm of the void did not split up, not even once. After a while, all the crows were devoured. Luli made up his mind and walked into the stone forest with the worm of the void. He wanted to see if there was a crow king in there. If there was, the worm of the void could split up. A cold snort suddenly sounded in Luli's mind like a clap of thunder. Piss off. Anyone who dares to enter the stone forest will be killed. Luli stopped and frowned. There was someone in the stone forest? So, those crows were under his control. Someone was cultivating sorcery in the stone forest? Never mind, Luli was here to look for demons, not to fight. Since this man didn't do anything when he killed a flock of crows, Luli didn't want to fight to the death with this man. Luli turned around and walked around the stone forest to the distance. What he didn't know was that as soon as he left, a skinny old man with disheveled hair walked out from the stone forest like a madman. The old man's eyes glowed in a green light. He stared at Luli and murmured, "Worms?" Last time, the bald-bearded man ran into a young man that could release worms. Is this the one? Hiss hiss, the skinny old man waved his hand. Several crows flew out from the stone forest. Different from the previous ones, these crows were small, semi-transparent, and gave off no energy. Go after that man. Don't let him see us. The skinny old man waved his hand and the crows whooshed away. The old man walked around and murmured, "Maybe I can use this information to blackmail the bald-bearded man. Maybe I can let him borrow my land to study the divine glyph." Whoosh, the skinny old man flew up like a large bird and rushed into the black mist, quickly disappearing into the distance. What? Luli had just run for dozens of miles when he suddenly looked back. Behind him was nothing but dark fog. He could not see anything. Luli pulled a long face. Ever since he engraved the trace of the great Tao in the primordial realm into his body, his senses were more than 10 times keener. The crows hiding in the dark fog to follow him were spotted by Luli easily. Worm of the Void, go and kill those crows. They want to follow me? Luli waved his hand and the dark golden worm of the void whooshed over. The crows hiding in the dark fog tried to fly away, but the worm of the void caught up with them and ate them. Chapter 1898. Luli's voice traveled far. But the skinny old man did not hear it because he had gone to another direction. Luli shouted. Receiving no reply, he turned around and walked into the distance. He didn't dare to go deeper into the mountains. Lady said there might be demon kings in there. Luli had to go around in circles to look for demons. Dozens of miles later, he went over more than a dozen mountains. Once again, he ran into demon beasts. This was a group of ape-like demons with green hair and wings. Their eyes glowed in a white light. Their fangs were shining and their expressions were ferocious. It was quite a horrifying sight. There was not one ape demon, but a group of them. They were densely packed in a valley. When Luli approached the valley, he alarmed one of the ape demons, which caused the others to attack him. However, those demons were clearly not advanced ones. Since Luli had a jade talisman in his hand, the demons didn't dare to come closer. They only kept howling from a distance of thousands of feet, making a creepy sound. Woo woo, a demon stared at Luli from the distance and howled. The demon flew up and the green hair on its head stood up. The hair left its body and shot toward Luli in the form of thousands of needles. As soon as this demon started to attack, the others followed suit. Their hair stood on end and they came at Luli from all sides. The green hair was fast. In the blink of an eye, Luli felt he was in the middle of a storm. Buzzing, Luli didn't dare to use his supreme relic armor. The demon's attacks were sharp and his armor could be pierced through. He mobilized the energy in his 720 acupoints to increase his defensive ability. Clank, 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 Luli felt the tens of thousands of green needles were poking into cold iron. Just when he thought the green hair would bounce back, the green hairs glowed and began to twist and entangle Luli. 1 round, 2 rounds, 10 rounds, Luli was entangled in the green hair. The hair was glowing in a green light and began to corrode Luli's body. Smoke rose from Luli's body as if he was being burned by fire. Impressive! Luli exclaimed to himself. Demons were indeed demons. They had strange skills that were unheard of. He scanned the area with his spiritual will and found that all the demons were emitting a green light. It seemed like they were controlling the green hair. Void worms, move out! Luli's mountain glowed. A dark golden worm of the void flew out like a shooting star. In a blink, the worm of the void disappeared into the body of an ape demon. Bang! As Luli had expected, the ape demon was devoured in an instant. At the same time, some of the green hairs on Luli's side fell off and onto the ground. As expected. Luli nodded. Now that the demons were dead, the green hair was out of his control. He did not struggle. He waited quietly for the worms of the void to eat up all the demons. His divine will tracked the void worm, and he was secretly looking forward to it. These demons dared to attack him, so their levels should be quite high. He wondered if the void worm could split up. 10, 50, 70. All of a sudden, the worms of the void stopped moving. Luli was overjoyed. The void worm finally split. Although it was only 1 into 2, it proved that the primate demon could make the void worm split. There were over 1,000 demons in the valley. If all of them were eaten, there should be more than a dozen worms of the void. Buzzing, Luli released 2 dark golden worms of the void at once. They dashed toward the primate demon on the left and right sides respectively. At the same time, Luli released his powerful chi and energy. He felt like a huge dragon and an elephant. His chi and energy spread to an area with a radius of 300 miles, alarming all the demons in the valley. Buzzing, buzzing, Luli released all the dark golden worms of the void, 5 in total. They flew to all sides and attacked the demons that were coming. Luli also released some golden worms of the void. Later, the dark golden worms of the void would split up. He wanted to see if the golden goose's worms of the void could evolve. Not bad. The golden-colored void worms whizzed over. Even though the speed at which they ate was extremely slow, there were many of them. He released millions of void worms at once. Each void worm took a bite, and only tens of thousands of golden void worms were needed to devour a demon. Not long afterward, the 5 dark golden worms of the void all split up. It would take time. Luli was entangled by the green hair. He was too lazy to move. He sat down and let the golden worms of the void attack. Soon, the golden worms of the void began to split up, but none of them evolved, which disappointed Luli. After a moment, he was sure that the golden worms of the void could not split up. He called back all the worms of the void, took out the cold blade, cut open the green hair and dashed out. Boom! He dashed over and smashed away a demon. All the bones in the demon's chest were smashed. Luli's strength was horrifying. The demons around him stepped back. Since Luli had the jade talisman made by Fairy Tianyun, they were scared. Bang, 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 bang! Luli dashed around. Every time he punched, he could injure a demon severely. He was unstoppable. The green hair swept over, but Luli cut them apart. His defense was strong. The attacks of the demons could not inflict much harm on him. Every time Luli attacked, he would not kill the demons, only injure them. Those demons were nourishment for the worms of the void. It would be a shame to kill them. Half a day later, the dark golden worms of the void finished splitting. There were 10 worms of the void. Luli controlled the worms of the void to fly toward the demons at once so that they could continue to eat. The 10 worms of the void ate 70 or 80 demons and evolved again. There were not many demons left. Luli didn't bother to attack them anymore. After all, the demons would not come close to him. They would only release green hair, which could not inflict much harm on him. At the very most, he would be injured on the surface. He could recover on his own due to his strong healing ability. Another half a day later, the 10 worms of the void grew to 20. Luli was thrilled. The 20 worms of the void were a powerful trump card. At critical moments, they could help him kill heaven gods of 3 trials. Go! Luli sent the worms of the void to deal with some other demons. But he only controlled 3 worms of the void. Too many worms of the void would not be enough. He could not even split 1 worm of the void. When the last hundreds of demons were killed, another 3 worms of the void split. This time, Luli waited. He put the worms of the void back into the mountain and walked into the valley. He wanted to see if there were any treasures in the place where the demons lived. Luli walked into the valley. He used psychic power to check. His mind was taken aback. He found the divine pattern in the walls of the valley. As soon as he stepped into the valley, he felt a strange force field. In the force field, he could not use divine energy. This is the so-called divine pattern plaza? Chapter 1899. Luli felt that divine patterns and inhibition formations were different approaches to achieve the same result. The only difference was that divine patterns were more powerful, profound, and mysterious. If inhibition formations were formations that simulated laws of nature, then divine patterns were skills that Luli felt were directly based on laws of nature. Studying laws of nature could lead to fundamental principles, killing moves, and skills. There were ancient experts who were able to attach formations onto weapons and inscribe on objects. These were known as divine imprints. A blood-red tentacle reached out and the snow tentacle went into the ground. Luli did not wait for Blood Fairy to check. After the time for 1 incense stick to burn, Blood Fairy said, "Master, what is this? It feels very mysterious and very vast. I feel that, if I can comprehend these things, my innate divine ability might be able to evolve." Then quickly go and comprehend it. Directly record the divine inscription and slowly comprehend it later. Luli was not in the mood to study the divine patterns. When Blood Fairy learned them, he would learn them as well. Blood Fairy could transmit the information to him later. The Bloodvine was talented in formations. She was faster than Luli when it came to this. Okay. Blood Fairy's tentacle reached out and wandered around. Luli searched around but found nothing. There were no treasures in this nest of demons, only some strange fruits. Those must be the demons' food. Luli did not dare to take them. Those food did not seem to be fruit. Instead, they seemed to have some evil energy. Luli went to a cave and sat down to cultivate. He gave Blood Fairy time to write down the divine patterns here. It was a good chance for him to study and see how he could integrate the sword intent of ice into Ghastly Slash. There were many divine patterns here, thousands of them. Many of them were intricate and complicated. Fortunately, Blood Fairy had the foundation of formations. It was not difficult for her to write down the divine patterns. Otherwise, it would take someone several years to write down the divine patterns. Time moved on. 7 days had passed, and Blood Fairy had not finished. Luli decided to stay in cultivation. He told Blood Fairy to wake him up when she was done. 5 days later, Blood Fairy woke Luli up. It was not because she had finished. It was because someone had broken in. "Master, there are 2 warriors. They are strong." Luli opened his eyes all of a sudden. He used psychic power to check and was taken aback. This was because 2 people had barged in, and one of them was actually an old acquaintance. It was a man dressed in a red robe. His head was shiny and there were tattoos on it. He held a curved blade with a hook in his hand. Who else could it be other than Baldy? The other person was an old man who looked like a madman. His hair was disheveled and his clothes were ragged. He was so skinny that he looked like a bag of bones. It seemed like he hadn't eaten for many years and was about to starve to death. Hee, the bearded bald man locked his psychic power on Luli and let out a creepy laugh. He curled his tongue and said, "It's a small world. Little handsome man, we meet again." Luli felt his stomach churn and he almost threw up. His eyes were like knives as he glanced at the other person and said, "Who is this? Why did he help the wicked? I have no enmity with you, right? You want to help Baldy deal with me? No grudges?" The crazy old man smiled coldly and said, "When you killed my Shinya, did you ever think that this day would come? It's you?" Luli finally understood. It must be this crazy old man who asked Baldy to come. Luli stood up in delight and said, "I have told you, don't mess with me or I will make you die without a burial place. Baldy, you escaped last time, but this time, you will be buried here." "Arrogant punk," the crazy old man said with a cold smile, "when I was at the second heaven, your grandpa wasn't even born yet. You have only been cultivating for a few decades and you are only a first heaven immortal. How can you be so arrogant? Baldy, are you sure that he killed your 5 brothers?" Baldy pulled a long face. He waved his hand and said, "Li Hor, let's go out and fight with him." "Cut the crap. Why do we have to go out?" Old Ghost Li Hor was a little bewildered. Then, he came to a realization and sneered, "It's just a little demon. I can suppress him with a flip of my hand. To think that you are a famous demon on the heavenly Devil Island. You are actually afraid of a little demon?" Whoosh! Luli didn't waste any more time. He flew out. Baldy's words had enlightened him. This was the plaza where divine energy was sealed. However, he didn't have to use divine energy at all. He could fight with his body. This was the perfect battlefield for him. Back off, Baldy knew how strong Luli's body was. He stepped back at once. Li Hua, on the other hand, did not care. He took out a shabby stove. Waving it, he said coldly, "Punk, when you go to hell, remember to tell him that I, Li Hua, killed you." That shabby stove was engraved with divine patterns. At the moment, the divine patterns were glowing. Purple flames sprayed out. As soon as the flames appeared, the space around them began to curl up. The temperature was high. The flames poured down like rain and engulfed Luli. Luli released energy from his acupoints to protect himself. He smelled black smoke and burnt flesh. But he was so strong that the flames could only burn his skin. They couldn't even hurt his muscles. "What?" Li Hua was shocked. Luli had dashed over in a blur and landed a punch on Li Hua's chest. Crack, crack. Li Hua's chest bones were broken. He was smashed away and smashed into the wall of the valley. Surprisingly, the wall was not cracked. Li Hua bounced off and rolled on the ground for more than a dozen times. Hiss, hiss, the bearded Baldy sucked in a breath of cold air and quickly retreated out of the valley with his legs. But Luli was faster. In a blur, Luli dashed to the front of Baldy. "Piss off!" Baldy waved his saber. A ray of dark glare appeared in front of Luli's eyes. Luli was surprised. How could Baldy use such evil skills when his divine energy was sealed? Buzzing, even though Luli could not find Baldy, he didn't care. The mountain in his hand glowed and 3 dark golden worms came out. Luli ordered the worms of the void to attack the living beings nearby. Since Baldy was here, the worms of the void would take the initiative. Luli did not believe that Baldy could survive the attacks from the dark golden worms. Bang! Luli felt he was smashed away. His sight returned to normal. He turned to where Baldy was at once. Baldy was rolling on the ground. The dark golden worms of the void must have begun to gnaw at his body. Luli was overjoyed. He dashed over, trying to finish Baldy in one move. Buzzing, the ring on Baldy's hand glowed. A white boat appeared in his hand. The boat was engraved with complicated runes. He rolled on the ground and disappeared into the boat. The boat glowed and flew up at a horrifying speed. In an instant, it vanished into the distance. A flying artifact engraved with runes. Lu Li's eyes glowed. Last time, Lady E mentioned that Baldy had such an artifact. Finally, Lu Li saw it. Chapter 1900. The bald man ran away, and cost Lu Li 3 dark golden worms of the void. This man was guilty of many crimes. He was alive after being hunted by so many powerful warriors. He did have some tricks up his sleeve. Whoosh! On the other side, Li Hua dashed out of the valley quietly. He was not arrogant anymore. He could not use divine energy here. His abilities were suppressed. He would be beaten to death by Lu Li if he stayed here. Whoosh! Lu Li dashed to the front of Li Hua. Staring at him coldly, he said, "Crazy old man, where are you going? Didn't you say you can defeat me with a flip of your hand?" Li Hua raised the stove high and shouted, "Punk, don't be so arrogant. If you push me too far, I will fight you to the death." "You can do that?" Lu Li sneered. He dashed to the front of Li Hua and smashed at his head with his fist. He would never show mercy to his enemies. Since Li Hua wanted to kill him, he would not release the tiger back to the mountain. Buzzing. The stove in Li Hua's hand glowed, pouring out endless flames. But this time, the flames did not come at Lu Li. Instead, the flames enveloped him. The flames formed a cocoon around him, forming layers of armor. Boom! Lu Li's fist landed on the armor of flames. Flames burst out and rained down. However, the strength of Lu Li's fist was almost exhausted. Li Hua stepped back easily and then used the flames to form another armor of flames. Lu Li was surprised. These old men had lived for a long time, and they could live on the Demon Mountain all year round. They must have some tricks up their sleeves. Lu Li dashed on and punched again. He did not believe that Li Hua had endless flames. Caw, caw, the runes in the stove glowed. Suddenly, many fire crows flew out, all made of flames. Hundreds of them flew out and smashed at Lu Li. Bang, bang, bang! Lu Li waved his fists constantly. Those fire crows were shattered. Unstoppable, he dashed toward Li Hua. When the old man stopped releasing more fire crows, Lu Li punched at him. Bang! Flames filled the sky, and the shield disappeared. However, old ghost Li Hua retreated again. At the same time he roared, "Brat, don't push me too far. If you push me too far, I will release the origin of fire and burn you to ashes. If you let me go, I promise I won't trouble you again." Fire origin? Alright, let's see if you can burn me to death. Lu Li was not afraid at all. Li Hua might be bluffing. Even if he did have the origin of fire, Lu Li believed that his body could stand it and he would not be incinerated in an instant. Xiao! Lu Li dashed forward again and punched again and again. Li Hua tried to build up an armor with flames, but Lu Li shattered it easily. Lu Li noticed that Li Hua's eyes were flickering as if he was hesitating. His heart skipped a beat. It seemed that this old man really had some powerful tricks up his sleeve. Perhaps he didn't have much of the origin of fire, and didn't want to use it so easily. Once again, Lu Li approached Li Hua. The mountain in his hand glowed as he released 3 worms of the void. The 3 dark golden worms of the void were so fast that they disappeared into Li Hua's body in a flash. What? Li Hua came back to his senses. He used psychic power to check inside his body. When he found the 3 worms, he was taken aback. The flames outside his body hid and went into his body. He wanted to use the flames to melt the 3 worms. Unfortunately, the dark golden worms of the void were too strong. The flames of the bell could not melt them. Lu Li gave an order to the worms of the void. The worms of the void began to chew. Li Hua trembled in pain. "You have forced me to do this," Li Hua bellowed. He paid no more attention to the worms. The stove flew out from his hand toward Lu Li in a flash. At this moment, Lu Li sensed a fatal danger. Without any hesitation, he dashed into the mountain. The mountain was one of the 9 mysterious mountains. The other 3 mountains were not found and they were not powerful enough. That being said, the material of the mountain was special. Luli believed that not even strong flames could burn it down. Buzzing, the furnace shone brightly. Next, flames sprayed out from within. The flames were white in color and emitted a cold light. As soon as the flames appeared, the surrounding space became distorted. Green smoke rose from the ground, and the temperature was frighteningly high. Okay. Luli noticed that the mountain was glowing, but there was no sign of melting. He was relieved. The 9 mysterious mountains did not disappoint him. Ah! Lihua rolled around on the ground. The worms of the void began to attack. His internal organs were bitten off in an instant. Blood oozed out from his mouth. His face was pale. Clearly, he was badly injured. Whoosh! Luli flew the mountain over and used it to suppress Lihua. Seeing the mountain coming down, Lihua took out a bell. The bell enlarged and covered him up. Bang! The mountain came down, but it could not crush the bell. It could not even make the bell move. Luli exclaimed to himself. This guy had many treasures. No wonder he was on the same level as Baldihua. There were divine patterns on the bell as well. It seemed that Baldihua and Lihua had learned many divine patterns in the Demon Mountain. Luli was not in a hurry. He sensed the worms of the void through the mother worm. He noticed that the speed of the worms of the void was slowing down. Lihua must be using some special means to suppress the worms of the void. The flames from the stove dissipated in the air. The stove floated in the air quietly. Luli dashed out, trying to put the stove back into the wicked bead. However, the stove was stuck in the air and could not be moved. Luli came back and punched at the bell. He didn't believe that he couldn't knock the bell away. Energy surged out from his 720 acupoint. The violent force was transmitted into the bell. Boom! The bell let out a muffled noise. It was moved a few inches by Luli's violent force. Luli's eyes glowed. He kept punching. The bell kept making muffled noises as it was being knocked back. Bang! When Luli had punched out more than 300 times, the bell was smashed away. Lihua dashed out from inside and held a silver spike in his hand. There was some green liquid flowing on the spike. Clearly it was poisonous. Lihua could not use divine energy, so he was much slower than Luli. Luli slid to the sides, turned around and smashed at Lihua's back with a roundhouse punch. Boom! Lihua was smashed away. His back was covered in blood. At the same time, 10 worms of the void flew out from Luli's mountain and went into Lihua's head. No! Lihua screamed in terror at the sight of the 10 dark golden worms of the void. Just now, it took him a lot of effort to suppress the 3 worms of the void. Now, 10 more were flying into his head. How could he survive? Chapter 1901. At this critical moment, Luli told the worms of the void to stop, not because he was soft-hearted, but because he wanted to know more about the Mountain of Demon. He knew nothing about the Mountain of Demon. It would be more convenient for him to take action if he knew more. The worms of the void stopped outside Lihua's soul, ready to devour it at any time. Luli's eyes flickered as he said, "Fly your stove over there. Throw your interspatial ring and bell over there. Don't play tricks or I will let the worms eat your soul right away." What? Lihua's eyes flickered. He could not use divine energy here, and he could not release his fundamental meaning. If he threw his interspatial ring and treasures over there, it would be as easy as crushing an ant for Luli to kill him. You want to die? I will grant you your wish. Luli was enraged that Lihua did not move. Seeing the killing intent in Luli's eyes, Lihua knew that Luli would kill without batting an eyelid. Lihua shouted at once, "Don't do anything. I will throw them away." Throwing away the weapon in his hand, Yang Kai took off his space ring and controlled the furnace and bronze bell to fly to a corner before putting on a pitiful expression and saying, "Little lord, I was just bewitched by this bald-bearded man. You killed hundreds of my fire crows before, but I didn't do anything to you, right? Little Gongzi, please spare me. Shut up. Luli stared at the old man's sleeve and said, Throw out the interspatial artifact from your sleeve. Do you dare to play tricks? Do you think I don't have the courage to kill you? Old Devil Li Hua's expression became completely bitter. He took out a bead from his sleeve and cupped his hands. Young master, there's nothing left this time. Okay. Luli used psychic power to check and made sure that nothing was hidden. Then, he said coldly, I will ask and you will answer. If I am not satisfied, you will die right away. No problem. Old Ghostly Hua nodded very sincerely. As long as I know, I will tell you everything I know without reserve. But, I want to know if I can survive if I answer all your questions. If you can't guarantee my life, you can kill me now. I won't say a word. Luli shouted with killing intent, You are not in a position to negotiate. Cut the crap. Believe it or not, I can kill you right now. Kill. The old ghost of Li Hua was surprisingly unyielding this time. He stuck out his chest and said with his eyes closed, I'm going to die anyway. Why should I waste my breath? You're quite smart, old man. Luli thought for a while and said, Remove the spiritual connection with all the treasures you have. If you answer my questions, I can let you go. It doesn't matter to me whether I kill you or not. This is my promise to you. I don't have any treasures, Old Ghost immediately said with a bitter expression. Young master, I'm just an old fart and my strength isn't that high either. What kind of treasure can I have? Besides, without these weapons and treasures, I'll definitely be killed by the nearby martial artists. I'd rather die now. Cut the crap. Luli was losing his patience. He shouted, You don't have a choice. Either you break off the spiritual connection now or I will kill you right now. If you spout any more nonsense, I won't ask you anymore. There are many people on the Demon Mountain. I'll ask someone else. Fine, fine. You win. Li Hua was heartbroken. The treasures and those in the interspatial ring were his life's treasures. But if he died, he would have nothing left. As long as he could stay alive, he would have a chance to find someone to kill Luli and get his treasures back. He made up his mind and broke off the spiritual connection with all the treasures. Luli put everything away in the interspatial ring. Then he stood in front of Li Hua and said, Do you know the distribution of the demons on the Demon Mountain? Yes. Li Hua had lived on the Demon Mountain for tens of thousands of years. Naturally, he knew where the demons were. He thought about it and said, Young master, I have a map in my interspatial ring. Take it out and give it to me. I will draw out the distribution of the demons. Okay. Luli took out the interspatial ring and found the map. He threw the map and the pen to Li Hua and said, Draw out the levels of all the demons. For example, the ape demon here is of the 3rd rank. If there are some demons that are stronger than the ape demon, write it down as the 4th rank and so on. Don't waste your time. Otherwise, I will kill you even if I have to chase you for hundreds of millions of miles. No, no, of course not. Li Hua waved his hand and began to draw on the map carefully. Luli used psychic power to check. The map was clear. There were thousands of mountains on the map and each mountain had a name. This Li Hua is quite honest. Luli noticed that Li Hua didn't need Luli's instructions. Li Hua had already marked out some caves on the mountains with different levels of demon cultivators. Luli also saw that in a mountain in the middle, there was a powerful warrior at the later stage of the 3 trials realm cultivating. There really is a demon king? Luli was surprised to see Li Hua had written the words, Demon King on the mountain in the middle. Lady Yi did not lie to him. There was indeed a demon king here. But it was not powerful enough, so the demon king didn't bother to do anything. After the time for 3 incense sticks to burn, Li Hua finished the circle on the map. He threw the map to Luli and said, Young master, I have marked out all the demons and powerful warriors. If anything goes wrong, you can come after me at any time. I have enemies out there and a big force is after me. I don't have the courage to leave the demon mountain. Young master, you can come to me at any time. Li Hua's words were sincere. Lu Li took over the map and took a look. There were demons in many places, but the ones in the outer areas were not strong. The ones in the middle were more powerful. The demon king in the middle was the most horrifying. It was said that he was as powerful as an old guy cultivating here. Lu Li took a closer look, but didn't see anything strange. He put away the map and asked, "Does the bald bearded man have any helpers at the demon mountain? Like a powerful backer?" Lu Li was worried that the bald bearded man would find some powerful warriors to help him since he ran away. Li Hua said with certainty, "No, the bald bearded man likes men. Many people are disgusted by this perverted hobby of his. Some old men even don't allow the bald bearded man to pass by where they cultivate. Young master, think about it, if the bald bearded man had a backer, he wouldn't have come with me. He was almost killed by you last time. He is not that stupid." Okay. Lu Li thought about it and agreed. He thought about it and asked, "Does the Demon King have any treasured land?" Treasured land? Old Taoist Li Hua's eyes flashed with confusion, but he quickly came to his senses and said, "If we are talking about treasures, it would be the old demon mountain. There's a mark on the map. That place was once the residence of the old demon. There's an ancient palace with countless divine imprints there. If you can learn some divine patterns, you will benefit for the rest of your life. It is said that there are some ancient mystical weapons in the palace, even incomplete sovereign weapons. Of course, these are just legends. We don't dare to go to the mountain of Demon Mountain because the Demon King is there. Incomplete sovereign weapons." Chapter 1902. No, soon, Lu Li calmed down. How could a broken weapon appear on the monster mountain? If so, the Asmodean king would have taken it away. This was a broken weapon. Even powerful warriors of the second plane would be tempted, let alone the Asmodean king. There are many glyphs at the monster mountain? Lu Li pondered over this and asked, "The old demon specialized in studying divine runes? Why else would there be so many glyphs?" "Yes," Taoist Li Hua explained, "the old demon is actually not a monster, but an immortal expert. His physical body was destroyed back then, and his soul was suppressed in a very strong instrument. His soul has been suppressed for 1,000,000 years. He did not know how to spend the long time, so he began to study glyph. It so happened that there were many glyphs in that powerful artifact. He studied them for 1,000,000 years and in the end, he escaped." His soul escaped. Lu Li frowned and asked in confusion, "How powerful can a remnant soul be? How come he was so powerful back then? How can a remnant soul move around?" "That is why the demon is so powerful," Taoist Li Hua said. "The old demon escaped from the third heaven. Furthermore, he controlled another demon's physical body. He turned the demon's body into a powerful artifact. The defense of the body was no weaker than that of young master. The body was like an artifact. He could control the artifact to attack and kill enemies. He dominated the second plane. He lived on the monster mountain for many years. Because the body was not his, he could not cultivate. He had to study the glyphs, hoping to use the power of the glyphs to form powerful attacks and defenses. He wanted to become a powerful warrior and then go to the third plane for revenge. He studied the monster mountain for hundreds of thousands of years and created many glyphs. He became a renowned demon at the second plane. Unfortunately, when he was fighting for a piece of treasure, he offended a powerful warrior at the second plane. He was severely injured and fled back to the monster mountain. In the end, he was killed by the Asmodean king. The Asmodean king killed the monster mountain and occupied the monster island. But he did not destroy the glyphs here. He just copied one and left. She said that the divine patterns here had the ability to steal the creation of heaven and earth, and hoped that the later generations with great luck would be able to comprehend them. After the seal was undone, the great demon king also gave strict orders not to destroy the divine imprints here on a large scale. Otherwise, they would be killed without question. Taoist Li Hua told Lu Li the story of the king of demons. Lu Li was filled with excitement. He marveled at the old demon's heaven-defying talent, admired the great demon king's breadth of mind, and lamented at the vastness and mysteriousness of this world. The world was so vast that it was beyond Lu Li's imagination. At first, Lu Li thought that the heaven-reverse universe was the entire universe. Later, he learned that there were 9 universes and many other universes. After that, he found out about the God realm and came to the God realm. At that time, he thought that the divine realm was the entire world. Slowly, he realized that the divine realm was just a corner of the world. The real world was boundless. Perhaps even the great demon king didn't know how big this world was. In the boundless world, there were billions of races and countless gods. The experts were like the stars in the sky, and the countless geniuses were like the meteors that flashed by. Someone as powerful as Emperor Z was beheaded. How could the old demon king become a hero of a generation and dominate the second plane by using the power of others' bodies and the divine marks? How many more mysteries were there in this world? How many more strange skills were there? How many more powerful warriors were there? How many more shocking secrets were there that the world didn't know? Lu Li realized that the more powerful he became, the more secrets he would learn. The more shocked he would be. What was more, he would find this world more and more unfamiliar. He was like a frog that was trying to climb up a well. The higher he went, the bigger the sky was. When he finally walked out of the well, he would realize that this world was beyond his imagination. Become stronger, keep on becoming stronger. I want to be a powerful warrior. Lu Li strengthened his belief. He didn't want to be a powerful warrior that could dominate the third plane. He only wanted to be able to defeat the Hall of Black Fire and find Lu Ling in the third plane. He only wished that nobody could threaten his life or disturb his peaceful and comfortable life. Young master. Li Hua's voice pulled Lu Li back from his thoughts. I have answered so many of your questions. Can you let me go? What else do I need to know about the Demon Mountain? Lu Li thought about it and asked several more questions about the Demon Mountain. Finally, he waved his hand and said, Okay, get lost. Don't think about bringing people to kill me. Next time, I will kill you without mercy. Thank you, young master. Thank you so much. Li Hua was overjoyed. He didn't expect that Lu Li would let him go. Once devils like them had the intention to kill and had the upper hand, they would not show mercy. Lu Li was full of killing intent. Li Hua didn't expect that Lu Li would let him go. Li Hua thanked Lu Li several times and then rushed out. In a few blinks, he had vanished into the distance. Lu Li didn't leave right away. Instead, he went into the cave to look through Li Hua's collection. Blood Fairy, hurry up and carve down the divine marks here. Lu Li said to Blood Fairy. Since Baldy Who had run away, it was best not to stay here any longer. If Baldy Who found some helpers, he would be in big trouble. Of course, the divine marks here could suppress the divine energy of warriors, which was a natural advantage for Lu Li. He should be able to deal with an average transcendent god at the third tribulation. If there were too many dark golden worms, it would not be impossible for Lu Li to kill a transcendent god at the third tribulation. Master, please give me 3 more days. Blood Fairy said. Lu Li was relieved. Blood Fairy was never one to boast. If she said 3 days, then 3 days. She wouldn't delay. Lu Li began to cultivate. Baldy Who and Taoist Li Hua didn't come. Maybe Baldy Who didn't find any powerful helpers. Lu Li spent 3 days in peace. Blood Fairy's voice came on time. Master, I have carved all the divine marks. Please give me some time to study them. Maybe I can build such divine marks. What? Luli was taken aback and then overjoyed. If Blood Fairy could build such divine marks, he would be able to suppress the divine energy of his enemies. His enemies would have to resort to artifacts and skills to kill him. To fight him physically? Not even an average transcendent god at the third tribulation could defeat him, let alone a second tribulation one. Good. Blood Fairy, do your best. Later, I will find good materials for you to devour, Luli praised. Then, he remembered something. He took out all the interspatial rings and sent out everything in them. Instantly, the valley was filled with strange items and materials piled up like mountains. Luli waved his hand and said, Blood Fairy, go and have a look. Tell me if you see anything you like. I will let you have all of them. Chapter 1903. Blood Fairy reached out and began to search through the pile of treasures and herbs. Luli had killed many people and taken many interspatial rings which contained many treasures, such as divine origin gold and other materials. The materials that Blood Fairy wanted to consume were special. Luli had found many for her in the past, but she was not interested. This time, Luli was worried that she would not be interested in any of the materials. Master, I can consume this green crystal. I think it will be very useful. Luli was delighted to hear Blood Fairy's voice. He rummaged through the pile of materials at once and found the green crystal that Blood Fairy mentioned. Unfortunately, this kind of green crystal was rare. Luli found 6 in total. He put the 6 crystals into the wicked bead and let Blood Fairy consume them slowly. He asked with anticipation, Are there more? Let me see. Blood Fairy reached into the pile of materials again. This time, she searched for the time for one incense stick to burn. Just when Luli thought there were no more, Blood Fairy said with excitement, There is another kind, the white one with flame patterns. There are many of them. They are not as good as the crystals, but they are useful. Master, collect them for me. Okay. As long as Blood Fairy wanted to consume something, Luli would not hesitate even if it was a top-level material, let alone some unknown ones. He searched quickly and found more than 100 of such stones. He put all the stones into the wicked bead. Blood Fairy began to search for the last one. Making sure that there were no more, Luli said, Keep one of these 2 kinds of stones. Later, I will find a way to buy some for you. Thank you, Master. I will consume the stones and study the divine patterns. Blood Fairy put away her tentacle. Luli put all the materials into his interspatial ring and left in stride. As soon as he went out, he used psychic power to check. In the valley, divine energy would be suppressed. He was afraid that the bald-bearded man and the others were waiting outside. Since Luli's body was engraved with the mark of Great Tao, his senses were much sharper. He could sense anyone lurking outside. He stood at the entrance of the valley for a moment to make sure that nobody was around. Then, he flew into the distance. Along the way, he took out a map to study. Eventually, he decided to go to the Eagle's Beak Peak, which was over 60 mountains away. Li Hua's map indicated that there was a group of demons at the Eagle's Beak Peak. They were only a bit stronger than the primates, but their numbers were dozens of times greater. There were at least 30,000 of them. If the 30,000 demons could be consumed by the dark golden worms of the void, Luli would be able to produce tens of thousands of worms of the void. There were dozens of mountains. It would be difficult for the bald-bearded man to track them down. Luli was running fast. He even avoided the secret cultivation grounds marked on the map. He had only come here for the void worm's evolution. He did not want to fight with any old demon. The map given by Taoist Li Hua was accurate. Luli traveled for half a day and passed through more than a dozen mountains without encountering any powerful demons or warriors. They had only encountered a small group of low-level demons. Moreover, the map had been marked accurately. This old geezer Li Hua is not bad. He didn't play any tricks. He was Li of Fairy. Li Fairies who? That the Li of Li as Li as Hu was as. He could put his mind at ease. Li Hua's marking was accurate. So far, there were no mistakes. 30-50. Li made it through safely. There were several places with dojos of runes, but he avoided all of them. There were too many runes for Blood Fairy to learn all of them. That being said, Li decided to let the worms of the void grow to a sufficient number first. What? There are dojos of runes up ahead? Li came to a mountain. The entire mountain was engraved with runes. The entire mountain was like a sword. Looking at it from afar, Li could feel his heart pounding. Go around. Li took a look at the map. There was a mark indicating that an old warrior was cultivating here. Li did not dare to go in recklessly. If he angered the old warrior, he might be killed. Li moved on after he went around carefully. 4 hours later, he finally arrived at the foot of the Eagle's Beak Mountain. Looking at the mountain in front of him that was shaped like an eagle's beak, Li was delighted. He sensed that there were many demons on the Eagle's Beak Mountain. The mark on the map was right. There were many demons here. The mountain was covered with dense forests and towering trees. However, Li could faintly see some shadows moving in the forest from the distance. The forest was filled with sinister energy. It was the energy of demons. Li did not go up rashly. Instead, he wandered around the Eagle's Beak Mountain. After half a day, he slowly made his way toward the mountain. At the foot of the mountain, he did not go in. Instead, he let out a dark golden worm of the void and controlled it to devour all living beings in the forest. Soon there was a commotion in the forest. Li heard some ghostly cries and howls. He used psychic power to check. In the dark fog, he saw some strange demons with humanoid shapes, black fur and lion-like faces. Those demons all had claws and fangs. Between their eyebrows was a vertical eye that glowed with a dark glare. It was quite intimidating. Okay. Through the worm of the void, Li could sense the battle going on inside. The worm of the void had eaten up a demon. The demon's vertical eye kept shooting out dark glare, but it was ineffective against the worm of the void. Move out! Li sent out most of the worms of the void, except for one dark golden worm of the void. He noticed that the worm of the void was eating slower than the ape demons, which meant that the worm of the void must be stronger. There was a good chance that the worm of the void could evolve. Okay. An hour later, the first worm of the void began to evolve after devouring more than 30 demons. Li put his mind at ease. Given the size of the Eagle's Beak Mountain, there must be tens of thousands of demons. After all, the dark golden worm of the void could split into at least 10,000. Li did not go up the mountain. After all, the dark golden worm of the void didn't need his help. He could just wait quietly down there. When the dark golden worm of the void split up, it turned into shadows. The demons could not harm them. Half a day later, the worm of the void split up. Dozens of worms of the void whooshed over and began to devour like crazy. After dozens of demons, the worm of the void began to split up again. The cycle repeated itself. 5 days later, there were hundreds of worms of the void, and they were splitting up faster and faster. Li was more and more delighted. When all the demons were devoured, his mission would be almost complete. 10,000 dark golden worms of the void would be a force to be reckoned with. The demons at the foot of the Eagle's Beak Mountain were all eaten. The worms of the void went into the mountain, and so did Li. The worms of the void were his treasures. He was worried and had to monitor them. 3 days later, there were more than 1,000 dark golden worms of the void. Sitting on a tree with his legs crossed, Li suddenly opened his eyes and looked down the mountain. His sharp senses told him that something was not right. He sensed danger was approaching. He did not use psychic power. Instead, he sensed through the trace of Tao. After a moment, a glint of coldness rose in his eyes. There was a group of people at the foot of the mountain. There were nearly 100 of them. Luli knew some of them, and 2 of them had fought with him before. The bald-bearded man, the Li Hua Taoist. The bald-bearded man finally showed up with a group of helpers. Among the helpers was a young and handsome young master. It was Yu Feixiang from the Tianliang mountain. The bald-bearded man has asked for Yu Feixiang's help. Li Hua must have made some arrangements so he can track me down easily. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.